And then I
We
figured out which
are
of it
on
didn't.
the air.
As, red, to indicate something. Okay.
I'll call the Londonderry Planning Board meeting to order for July 12th, 2023. Tonight, we handle our administrative board work first. We have 3 public hearings. One of them is a continued one. I'll handle that right after our administrative board work. And we have 3 conceptual discussions. And that will keep us occupied tonight. So to administrative board work, we have approval of minutes. That will be of June 7th and June 14th. I'll take those separately in case.
Pledge of allegiance first.
Oh, pardon me.
He's getting
I'm
excited.
trying to get through the meeting quickly.
And you gotta do your exit.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I just want to point out, for everyone who is here, this room has 2 exits. They're on the right-hand side of the audience, the front of the room, and the back of the room. If we need to evacuate for any reason, we ask you to proceed through the exit closest to you, go outside, move away from the building, and don't come back in. Our fire officials have instructed everyone to do so. That's my DuPont training. As every meeting started that way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We'll proceed. Administrative board work at first. Al's not going to be here tonight, so I'll appoint Tony to vote for Al. There we have 6, we have a total of 9 voting members. That is definitely a quorum, and we'll proceed. We have the minutes of June 7th and June 14th. I will take those separately in case someone wants to abstain.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of June 7th, 2023.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Ted. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions?
Abstain.
Bruce abstains, and Jeff abstains. Chair votes affirmative, and the minutes of June 7th are approved.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of June 14th, 2023.
Motion by Jake. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion by the board on the minutes of June 14th? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions?
Abstain?
Jeff abstains, and chair votes affirmative, and the minutes of June 14th are approved. And do we have any regional impact determinations?
Kelly indicated there was no regional impact determinations.
Okay. Let's see, discussions with town staff.
He's looking for this one. It's on the bottom of the.
Just a moment, please.
Sure, sure.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. Anything from the board? And I just want to mention that we have our joint meeting with the Heritage Commission on the 27th of June at 7 PM. And
27th of what?
27th of July. Thank you, Tony. Yeah. My brain's getting too far ahead of my mouth, or,
Something like that.
yeah. Okay, we'll proceed through to old business. I'll bring up item C, which is a public hearing on an application for a formal review of a lot line adjustment and consolidation plan to adjust the lot line of tax map 28, lot 29-2, and consolidate with map 17, lot 2, and map 28, lot 31-6, 52 Greenfield Road, tax map 28, lot 29-2, and 104 Greenfield Road, tax map 17, lot 2, zone industrial 2, Londonderry Holdings LLC, and Woodhaven Partners Limited Partnership are the owners, and Ken Selinsky is the applicant. And the applicant has requested continuance to the 2nd of August of 2023. If there are no questions, I'll take a motion to continue it to the 2nd of August.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Ted. Any discussion on the continuance? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and chair votes affirmative. And the public hearing on an application for a formal review of a lot line adjustment and consolidation plan to adjust the lot line of tax map 28, lot 29-2, and consolidate with tax map 17, lot 2, and map 28, lot 31-6, 52 Grenville Road, tax map 28, lot 29-2, and 104 Grenville Road, tax map 17, lot 2, zone industrial 2, Leonard Ray Holdings LLC and Woodhaven Limited Partnership being the owners, and Ken Selinsky is the applicant, is continued to the 2nd of August of 2023 at 7 PM right here. And this is your only official public notice. Okay, we'll go to, first item in old business is a public hearing on an application for a formal review of a site plan for a proposed 100,000 square foot warehouse building and associated site improvements at 13 Page Road, tax map 17, lot 27, zone commercial 2. Charles Evans, the owner, and Rhino Capital Advisor LLC is the applicant, and this has been continued from June 7th, 2023. Also, we'll take up the conditional use permit right afterwards. Or, because they're combined together, aren't they?
You actually want to,
Do the
you wanna do the
CUP
conditional,
first.
correct.
Okay, well, we'll do, I'll read it into the record here. It's a public hearing on an application for a conditional use permit, CUP, for approximately 22,150 square feet of temporary wetland impact, 2,700 square feet temporary disturbance, and 16,025 square feet of temporary wetland buffer impact to construct the proposed sewer main extension from Sanborn Road northerly to Page Road, 14 Page Road, tax map 17, lot 45, and 11 Sanborn Road, tax map 15, lot 164. Evans Family Limited Partnership, CJE Nominee Trust is the owner and the applicant. And I see Earl is all set, but I need to identify yourself for our records, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to
Okay,
recuse myself
and
for the next
for the record,
two.
show that Gianni Verani has stepped down from this discussion. That leaves us with 8 voting members.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Earl Blatchford from Hayner Swanson, representing the applicants. There's actually 2 entities involved here, which is Evans Family Limited Partnership that owns 14 Page Road, also known as MAP 17, Lot 45, which is the big lot related to the project. It also involves 11 Sanborn Road, which is identified as map 15, lot 164. And the owner, it's a different ownership entity, but it's still owned by Evans. They just, it's, the ownership entity is CJE Nominee Trust, but all related to Evans Family Limited Partnership. That lot was purchased to be able to, for the connection to Sanborn Road, to be able to run northerly onto Lot 45 and continue through to Page Road. So we've had discussions about the infrastructure improvements. We're constructing about 3,350 linear feet of sewer from Sanborn Road to Page Road, primarily through Lot 45, but also through Lot 164. We're also doing widening improvements and alignment improvements to Page Road. So associated with those, and primarily with the sewer construction, we have some wetland and buffer impacts. The sewer crossing, which occurs just as you get beyond the 11 Sanborn Road lot. The wetland is immediately behind that at the very southern end of Lot 45. And we have a crossing in there which temporarily disturbs about 2,700 square feet of wetland. And basically, they'll excavate, put the pipe in, put the seed bank material back in at the grade it was at, and leave it to just naturally revegetate and restore to that wetland system. Also in that area, there's also about 9,000 square feet of buffer disturbance on our original plan. And part of that was in addressing the stormwater questions. We added a couple of small basins, and one of the basins is at the southerly end to catch drainage from the, along the gravel road the gravel service road that goes with the sewer main construction. And that, the only place we had it was adjacent to the wetland and discharging to the wetland. So that's where the majority of the buffer increase or buffer impact is. And then with the Page Road widening, we've got three minor jurisdictional wetland impacts with, because of the road alignment pushing closer to the wetlands to meet the AASHTO and town design requirements for horizontal curves, the widened road, and the side slopes to be all in compliance. So some of the side slopes, some of the fill slopes encroach just slightly into the jurisdictional wetlands at three locations for a combined impact, and those would be permanent impacts of 2,150 square feet. Now, the two wetland impacts really aren't part of the CUP. Our wetland consultant has filed a dredge and fill application with the state for that. So we're really here for the buffer impacts. And then the Page Road has about 5,300 square feet of buffer impacts, and that's includes some areas along the road. And the majority of it is we added a sediment forebay on the north side of the existing stormwater area to pre-treat the runoff from the new closed drainage system from Page Road. So, and that encroaches into the buffer. So we have a total combined buffer impact, which is really what we're here for, the conditional use permit of 16,025 square feet, plus or minus. The Conservation Commission did a site walk with Bruce Gilday a little over a week ago, and I met with them last night and presented the plan to them. They had three comments, and I believe you've got a memo from them in your file. Basically, they had three comments to, and if you refer to the plan that's on the board, there was two small buffer impact areas that totaled about 1,725 square feet of buffer impact. And then that stormwater management area that I previously mentioned at the southerly end of the maintenance road. They wanted us to adjust the sewer alignment so that, one, we could pull the sewer away from those two small buffer impact areas, and two, if we could pull that stormwater basin further upslope and away from the wetland. So we would impact less wetland buffer. And the sketch plan, of course, these comments came last night, so I put together a sketch plan to show what we would be able to do so in red, you can see the adjustments to the sewer alignment, and the result of that would be eliminating the two small buffer impacts, reducing the application number by 1725, and then pulling the stormwater basin between 15 and 20 feet further upslope. I didn't have time to do definitive grading and drainage redesign, what have you, but I'm confident what I'm showing will result in I'd say probably another 2,000 square feet reduction in buffer impact along that, the wetland. So, and then the third item, it was requested, or there was inquiry whether or not a conservation easement, my client, Charlie Evans, would consider a conservation easement over that southerly 7 acres or so where the sewer runs, kind of that narrow section of the parcel. Some people refer to it as a dog leg, and some refer to it as like a panhandle, but that's that narrow southernmost portion. Charlie is traveling out of state. I left him a message after the meeting last night, and he called me back today. And his feeling is that to discuss that now is a little premature, because in the future, you know, especially with all the infrastructure going on, that there'll be future development on the 14-page road site. And I think the time, or he thinks the time to talk about, you know, mitigation is when we see what the actual development proposal will be, you know, what the limits of the development will be and the impacts, and then consider whether or not, you know, there needs to be mitigation or it's appropriate to have the conservation easement. When we did the site preparation plan a few years ago, which is under construction now, we did a large conservation easement area in the northeast, or really the easterly portion of this large parcel that goes over to the 93 right-of-way. And I know in discussing with Bruce Gilday, he said that the state, for this new wetland application, he said the state wouldn't be asking for any kind of mitigation because that area was more than what was required for mitigation for the wetland impacts for the site preparation plan. So anyway, the first two comments, we are happy to accommodate that. And as far as the conservation easement at this time, my client would respectfully decline to put that in place at this time. So that's pretty much the overview of the conditional use permit application. Happy to answer any questions that the board or members of the audience have.
Okay, what I need to do is have this application accepted as complete. I didn't, I was a little late getting my screen up, so,
No problem.
sorry.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the application as complete per staff's recommendation memorandum dated July 12th, 2023.
Motion for completeness by Jake.
Second.
Second by Ted. Any discussion on completeness at all? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and chair votes affirmative. And that's 8 members voting, and the application has been accepted as complete. We've already done the, hearing. I'll be getting to the public shortly, so. Yeah, we can hear from staff and the board, and then you'll have the floor.
Well, I have questions about this.
Yes,
Okay.
I know. We're going to be discussing it between our staff, the board, and the public. So that's the order that I go in, so we get the info from our staff, so we know a little more about it, and then the board will discuss it, and then the public will have input, and then we'll bring it back for further discussion.
Okay,
So-
so you don't forget about me.
No, you're.
I'll make sure he doesn't.
Yeah, you're right there. You're right in my sight.
I'm sure he doesn't either.
Okay, so what I'll do, I'll go to staff for staff input, the board input, and then the public for input. So,
I have nothing
John.
on this matter.
Pardon?
I have nothing on this matter.
Oh, okay. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the applicant indicated, they were at the Conservation Commission last evening. The commission recommended approval of the CUP. They recommended the conditions of relocating the stormwater management area further from the buffer, straightening the sewer line to reduce the buffer impacts, and then, as was just outlined, the easement, consideration of an easement. So I'll leave it to the board as far as which of those three you would like to include in a potential approval.
Okay. I'll start with Ann, and I'll go through the board.
Well, I've seen the Conservation Commission's response, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I just would ask, this is at Sanborn Road. Does it connect with the town sewer?
That's what they're doing, Ann, is
Oh.
they're tying into this town sewer at Sanborn Road.
Okay. Will it disturb the Sanborn Road at all? Because I know the grade school.
Absolutely.
North School is right there, and the
that's right.
timing of it.
That's right where the sewer is in
Yes.
Sanborn Road, so it will
Right,
absolutely
right.
disturb Sanborn Road.
Okay, thank you very much.
All set, Ann?
Yep.
I'll
Tony?
wait until after public comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jeff?
I have nothing at this time.
Lynn?
So I got lost on the conservation restriction on the dogleg near Sanborn Road. So does the sewer line, the proposed sewer line, come out between the houses that are there? I think there's 3 houses on Sanborn Road between Rockingham Road and the school.
Yeah, it runs through one of those residential lots,
Number
which
11.
Mr. Evans purchased.
Okay.
So initially, the discussions were to have an easement, to get an easement, and one of the residents was more receptive to, I guess they were ready to move and wanted to sell the lot, and so that's what happened.
Okay.
So we're running it strictly on that 11
property.
Sanborn property.
And which house was it that sold? Was it the middle one, or was it the one nearest?
It's
I think it's 11,
It's 11 Sanborn Road, which I think
That's
is.
nearest the school?
Which is the,
in between,
no, it's the middle, yeah, it's the middle
house?
one.
in
Okay.
between.
Yeah, there's actually 4 lots, there's 3 house lots, and then there's a little triangle that the state owns. And this is the one that, I think he basically, we examined, and he talked to all the owners, except for the state, because that was the worst option as far as running into, there's a lot of things in the road out there.
Yep.
There's water, there's fiber optic, there's a lot of underground utilities out there. So this, where we ended up was the easiest area. We basically crossed the water main, and that's it.
Okay, and will the house stay intact, or is the house
Yep.
coming down?
I mean, at this time, the sewer doesn't impact the house.
The house.
We're running along the side yard,
Okay,
so,
okay,
I got it up on the screen now.
yeah, so that's the,
okay, great. No, I'm all set, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, you're
Thank you.
welcome. Jake?
Yeah, that was the only spot that, kind of to Lynn's point. So is it on lot 164 or 165? It's on 164?
it's on 164,
164.
yeah.
And what is it's just the lot 164 that the easements has to be on? Or the
Correct, yeah,
conservation easement?
correct. No, not the conservation, the sewer easement.
Yes, I'm asking on let me go back here. I'm asking the conservation restriction, where exactly it's located, just so I.
Well, there isn't one. There was a request.
Correct.
If the owner would be willing to put a,
Correct. So
A
could you
cons-
show me back on your map here?
yeah, so if you
Where
look,
that restriction would be?
if you look behind those residential lots and you work,
This
so
right here?
starting there,
Yeah,
that narrow section, as you work your way to the right,
yeah,
all the way to where the lot widens out,
okay.
that would be kind of the dogleg. And it's about 7 acres of land. There is a wetland that there is a wetland that connects with the larger wetland that we're crossing. And,
And then you said there's an existing conservation easement. Is that, if I'm looking at this right, it's kind of, it's like behind poultry products?
Yes.
293?
yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly. It sort of,
Really on the outskirts
it
of
sort
the
of looks like
property.
like a gooseneck.
Yeah,
It's a long, narrow piece with a lot of
Correct.
wetland in it.
okay.
Yeah, and that was put into conservation 4 years ago, roughly. About 2019 was when that was executed.
I'm good for the moment, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ted?
I'm all set, looks good.
Bruce? Good. Okay. Any member of the public have any, or abutters have any questions, comments, or concerns? So, ma'am, I just need your, yeah, I need you to come to a microphone and just identify yourself with name and address, please.
I don't talk loud enough.
And you get an option of sitting and or standing, it's up to you.
All right. So my name is Robin like a bird, dame like a female. There's nothing like a dame. And I live at 2 Windermere Drive, which abuts Sanborn Road, as you can see on your little map. I don't understand any of this gibberish at all. So if somebody wants to take me to the map and explain to me what's going on, I would be happy to try and understand.
If you hold on a minute, Robin, I can help you out.
Okay.
So what's happening, Robin?
Yep.
You reside down in here. This is Windermere, right here. Yeah.
Yep.
So you, right there?
The map you had before was better.
Well, I'm gonna,
This one will
I'm gonna
make a
give you the
little bit
whole
more
story.
sense for you.
I'm gonna give you the whole
Just to show
story.
you the big picture.
Okay,
And a big picture and why you were invited tonight.
okay.
You reside here. What's happening is that there's a development that's being proposed way up here on the northeast corner of Page
Page
and
Road,
and
yep.
Rockingham Road. In order for them to get sanitary sewer up there, they need to build sewer from Sanborn Road, right in this vicinity. They're gonna go up cross-country through Charlie Evans' lot. He's going up, all the way up here, building it to the north. He's gonna cross Page Road, and he's gonna provide sewer to us with a sewer manhole here on Page Road. The reason why you were invited is because during the construction of the sanitary sewer through Charlie Evans' property, they're gonna be disturbing some wetlands. In order for him to get permission to do that, they have to come to this board to get permission to do that. So that's why you were invited this evening.
Okay, and is this going to tie into Londonderry sewer?
Yes, it will.
So they will be paying for sewer like the rest of the town?
Yes, they will.
But how is that going to affect the wetlands?
So again, along that alignment, Robin, along that alignment, see this blue hatching that you see on the plan? That identifies wetlands. So Earl's company went out there and they surveyed it, and they found that wetlands. So there's wetlands as it goes along that alignment, various locations along that alignment.
Yeah,
So
there's-
it's got nothing to do with the wetlands associated with the pond, the wetlands southeast of you.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with those wetlands, though.
So there's no nature, no animals or ducks or the like in there?
Again, I'm not a botanist or a,
Yeah, this is more in Bruce Gilday's, but he filed with New Hampshire Heritage Bureau to get a letter from them requesting they check their database. I think the only hit on it was, in the area, and I don't think it's really on the property, was Blanding's turtle, which is why we have a picture on the cover of our plan. But in addition, Bruce or his colleague did a wildlife study of the area as part of the wetland application, and that's part of the big 72, 75-page application that the town has a copy of. So it's been looked at. Of course, that site is actively under construction now with the site preparation, and there was a wildlife study done before, and all the necessary permitting through Fish and Game, EPA, Wetlands Bureau, and now with the smaller permit, Bruce is going back through that process and kind of revisiting it. So the only, and there are procedures if, and again, the Blanding's turtle hit is in the vicinity, not on this property. There weren't any hits on this property exactly, but there is some in the area. So there are procedures in place during construction. If they see any of the identified things, there are procedures to follow. They're supposed to stop, contact the state, and they'll come and
Okay.
check it out.
All right, that's the only questions I had. So
okay.
it won't affect us as far as our sewer and blocking us up or,
No, there'll be, there's going to be brief construction in Sanborn Road to put a new sewer manhole, connect to that existing main. run a pipe northerly, patch the road, and then we're done with it.
Thank you.
All set? Okay,
Earl, what was, at the you've changed your plan a little bit to reduce your wetland impact.
Yeah.
What was your original wetland impact,
The wetland impact didn't change. What we're changing is the buffer impact.
the buffer impact?
So
Okay.
the original, before that, those red line comments.
Yep.
Was that 16,000, what the application says is 16,025. With those changes, and again, I don't have the exact, because I haven't finalized the design, but we're gonna be reducing that number on the order of 3,500 square feet, maybe 4,000 square feet.
Okay.
So,
So since the Conservation Commission.
Since last
You've
night.
had about a 4,000 square foot deduction in
yeah,
what
give
your
or take.
buffer impact is.
give or take, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So roughly 25% in that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
okay. I just wanted to ask if you have any input for us, Marge? Are you all set?
Other than, at what point does the buffer mitigation policy?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if she comes to the mic.
Well, yeah,
She-
she answered what I wanted, so there's nothing, nothing material. So it's just number 3 is that they would like to see.
Okay, just want to make sure that we're good.
Yeah. Ray, you need to come to the microphone, and I need your name and address, please.
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive. I'm listening to what the gentleman said here. I see the proposed plan here. And I understand there's a 76-page report. Is that what I understood?
Well, it's an application, it's a wetland application package, and within that, there's a wildlife study and
And-
several other documents.
Which has been presented to the town, so you folks have that?
Yes, we have it in our possession.
Has everybody read it?
Nope, we have staff that has gone through
Well,
it.
well, I mean, but you folks are the ones that make decisions, right?
That's right, and we depend upon staff.
Yeah,
Ray.
okay,
Don't-
so-
Don't worry about it, it's,
What?
we have the info.
Excuse me? Don't worry about it?
No, right, correct.
That would be for me to decide on that, please.
Well, you
Okay,
can
so-
decide.
Can I continue here?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
As long as you keep to the subject.
No, we're on the subject. This property is a fairly large property. It's on both sides of Page Road. What we're talking about here, I believe, is on the north side of Page Road.
No, this is the south side of Page Road.
South.
It's the south side?
Yeah, it's north side of Sanborn Road and south side of Page Road.
South side of Page
Gonna
Road.
turn it
Where,
around,
where they have already have a mining operation?
Correct. The
Mining operation.
site preparation operation, yeah.
Okay.
They're regrading the
What,
site.
okay, the point of it, what I'm trying to make
Yeah,
here,
look,
this is a watershed.
We ain't here to argue, Ray, but just,
No,
t-
no,
tell us-
I'm here to speak.
Yeah, just tell us
Okay.
what's on your mind.
This is a watershed for Little Coas Brook, okay? Which now is being impacted. On top of that, we're talking about a gas line, I'm sorry, a sewer line, that's going to be brought up pretty much, I think, from what I gather, sort of parallel with Rockingham Road to get to this property that is proposed to be developed. All of this area, if it's the south of Page Road, which I understood you said it was, which is a mining operation is going on there now, which is impacting the watershed for Little Coas Brook, which also affects a lot of other things in the town of Londonderry. And I assume this sewer line that is going across their property is totally being paid for by them,
Correct,
correct?
correct.
Okay. All right, well, I think,
Ray, your point?
my point?
Yes.
My point is, I think we need to look at these things very carefully. I would suggest we probably all ought to look at the 76 pages or how many pages it is to see what it is. Somebody brought up about impact of wildlife. Maybe they walked out there and didn't see any Blanding turtles. They didn't see any other type of wildlife. We're assuming that. We don't know that. Unless we read it. You see what I'm getting at here?
Not quite.
We need to look at these things very carefully
Yeah, you gotta be
because
clear
it
about-
affects the rest of town. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else? Gianni? And then I'll go to Bob in the back row.
Bob, you go first. You want?
Go ahead, you're already there. Yeah, Gianni got his hand up first, but that's,
So, Giovanni Barani, 73 Page Road. My question is, and it may not be relevant to this, and if it isn't, I can wait. But when it gets to Page Road, is there ability at that point, that it's on Page Road, if others want to hook in to this sewer at a later date, at their expense, or what have you, can they hook into it? Or is it just for the purpose of this development?
I can answer that if you want, Mr. Chairman. We've been asked to, there's one manhole in Page Road, and we've been asked to put an 8-inch stub facing
To the east.
easterly, basically easterly. So for future tie-in.
So would the staff confer?
Yep.
Yeah, so.
We asked them for it.
If the neighbors next door wanted to hook into it or what have you, if they wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good.
anybody that can drain to it.
And it's at their expense, but is there a fee that has to be going back to Mr. Evans or anything to that effect?
Not, again, right now, it's private. What's being proposed here is totally private.
So how does that work?
How does that work?
So if, let's just say the vet next door wants to hook into the sewer line,
Yep.
do they have to pay a fee to Mr. Evans to hook into the sewer line?
That's civil. That's between, because it's a private line, Johnny.
Aren't you creating a municipal resource for that area?
No, again, he's creating a sanitary sewer service to his property. Very similar to what has been done on Jacks Bridge Road. It's a private sewer.
So odds are there's gonna be some sort of, the only person that's gonna ever benefit from this is Mr. Evans and his development.
No, again, as in Jacks Bridge Road, you know, he's gotten to the point where there's enough users of that line now that the town is considering taking it back over in accordance with our policies.
So you can take it over.
Correct. But we're not gonna take it over just for one user. It's a lot of sewer to maintain.
That's my concern, is that I think if you're gonna bring sewer into an area, I think from the town's perspective, you should require, I mean, they're asking for something here, right? They're asking to develop their parcel. You have an area up there that is in desperate need of road improvements, utilities, things of that nature. We all know that if you have the option of getting on public water and not leaching sewage into the ground, and there's a way to utilize municipal sewage, trust me, there's enough of a benefit for him to bring it to his property that it should be open to everybody in the area at their expense to bring their connection to the line and be able to use it.
would that be capable of doing that, John?
Again, right now, that line is sized for lot 45 and 14 Page.
But we also, if you remember from the study, we looked at an area.
Correct.
Kind of easterly and northeast.
Right.
Or due east of 13 Page.
Yeah,
I can't remember how many acres it was.
I don't either. I don't recall either.
But there's an additional area where the topography would allow it to gravity flow to this sewer. You go beyond that, and then you're probably looking at the need for a pump station
Yeah,
enforcement.
and again, you know, areas that Johnny's referring to, that's zoned AR1, that's residential.
Well, it is and it isn't, because if you get up Page Road, it actually is probably your only access point to all that land that goes north of this all the way into Manchester, and that's commercial.
Yeah, and
Because
again,
Route 28 is a limited access road, so you would come through there.
and topographically, Johnny, I believe it falls to the north, not to the south.
Yeah, I don't know, but then you'd have to put in a force main or something to that effect.
Right.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the area that's up there is bigger than the area that's by the airport area. I mean, if the town rezoned that industrial commercial at some later date, 50 years down the road, and really wanted to enhance their tax base, you're putting the utilities here. It should be sized appropriately, and, I mean, you're disturbing all this wetland, you're doing all this stuff. You should do it with a wise mind, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
That was my comment.
yeah, okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Bob, you had Bob in
Oh, yeah,
mind.
Bob.
Bob Mill, it was a tanker truck tipped over maybe 4 or 5 years ago on the ending of the Evan land. If you start digging for a sewer line right along, is that gonna expose some of the, the fuel contaminant that might have been spilled into the soil and maybe even spread it because of the digging and so?
This is just north of there anyway,
Yeah.
because this will start Sanborn Road.
I believe Evan would be aware of it.
Yes, oh, he's well aware of it.
Yeah, and that might be something that you'd want to take in consideration on how you might dig it and,
Yeah, absolutely.
the soil, so
Yeah,
you don't.
Mr. Chartier
Yeah,
has
don't.
mentioned that.
Yeah, don't put it into the water table and set things to that.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, there'll
Yeah.
be procedures in
Yeah,
place
yeah.
that, during excavation, if there are any
yeah, but
traces of that spill, of
Yeah.
any contaminated
It's-
soils.
I don't remember if it was a gasoline or diesel, but it was one of the two, I believe. Yeah, and the other thing is, have you looked at the possibility, I believe there was sleeves put on the Route 28 when it was rebuilt at Page Road, and you considered running the sewer from Mammoth Road going east from doing
Yeah,
it that way.
That was one of the options we looked at.
Yeah.
And that would require a pump station.
Okay, yep.
So this is
Yeah.
all gravity sewer.
right, yeah.
What we're doing, you're right, there's two 24-inch reinforced concrete
Yeah.
sleeves that were put in when the signal was improved. We're using one of those to extend water main from Mammoth Road.
Yeah, yeah.
We're running it along the shoulder, going through the southerly
On the southerly side. yeah.
southerly side.
Yeah.
And then up the south side and into
Into the.
the
project.
improved, into the widened section of,
Yes, so you're deciding to get a, of course, pump station is not cheap to run.
yeah, it just wasn't going
Yeah.
to pencil out.
Yeah, yeah.
This ended up this was the original plan, then there was talk about going that way.
Yeah.
And it just was much more expensive route.
Yeah.
Involving a pump station
Yeah,
and, and that would all be, private for the time, for the foreseeable future, as you said, like
Correct.
Jacksford Road. So we opted for this plan where it's all, except for the short crossing at Page Road, it's all on land that's controlled by Mr. Evans.
Yeah.
Like, except for the two right-of-way, Sanborn Road and
Page.
Page Road, yeah,
Yeah.
those two little areas that are,
Just thoughts that I had,
Yeah.
Probably be best to,
good thoughts.
do the work on so you don't spread the diesel.
Oh, yeah,
fuel.
absolutely.
Make more problems. I know the state spent, I don't know, something like $1 million to do cleanup work on it and.
Well,
Yeah, I think
It was the
state
company's
removed a
insurance
lot of
company
the
that
soil.
spent the $1 million.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably it was under the
But the monitoring.
supervision of the state, but
Absolutely,
wherever. Lot of money, but a deal like that, you don't get it all, I imagine. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, anyone else? We'll bring it back to the board for the board to ask any questions or discussion or make a motion.
Question, I think.
Yes.
So Giovanni Verani's discussion about the size of that sewer line going down there, I think, kind of struck a nerve with me. And the fact that it's going to be a private line right now, as opposed to a public line down the road. And, you know, we get into, at some point in time, if we have to, or if we do some development up in that area, John, and the line has to be expanded, the line has to be dug up and redone, does it make sense to do it in a public-private partnership at this point in time and size it right at the start of the project as opposed to doing it 5 or 10 years down the road?
And the problem we have now, though, too, Lynn, at 2,600 gallons a day, you may not have the cleansing velocities in that pipe. You may not have the cleansing velocities in that pipe for a long time.
Okay.
So actually, if you were to size it for what they need to meet the cleansing velocities, it might only be a 6-inch pipe.
Yep.
So.
No, I understand
Yeah,
exactly what you're saying, but I
Yeah.
think it needs to be said for the record.
Understood. And then again, in our facilities plan, and as Earl indicated, you know, that we've looked at that area of town. Lot 45, where the mining operation is happening, the site preparation is occurring now, that's always been envisioned as an industrial area, as well as the Rhino site across the street. And then again, when we look at it, we look at topographic. Does it make sense? And again, the goal of our sewer and our sewer facilities is to sewer the commercial and industrial areas in town. Typically, a residential lot is big enough to have a replacement system in the footprint of what's there. If a septic system is maintained correctly and pumped, should last 20 years.
Yep.
So, you know, so that's the thought that goes into our facilities plan. And then again, when, Earl, when you had first presented it, it was an 8-inch pipe. So we're going to a 10 now, aren't we?
No, we were the other way around.
Yeah, okay.
We had 10 and then up towards the top 8
Yeah,
per request.
correct.
It's all 8-inch proposed now.
Yeah, because again, when you
And
look
that's
at
where
the
you get the
flows.
sufficient flow.
Correct. And again, velocities, cleansing velocities, and
Yep.
so, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from the board?
I have a question. Page Road, at the end of it, runs, takes a curve and goes into Manchester.
Yeah. at
What
Lucas.
is on that? What, excuse me?
That's Lucas Road.
Lucas Road. Is there any sewer or water on that road?
No.
Is
That-
not-
Not that portion of Page, and I don't believe there's any sewer or water on Lucas.
Where that Lucas Road starts in Manchester on Mammoth.
No idea, Ian. I think there is sewer there, because I think that's what.
There's a
that's what-
large development.
Yeah, that's what Park just constructed out there.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if there would be a back way in too.
The sewer on Mammoth Road, I think it just goes down to the Londonderry line and ends.
Right, I was wondering, because there's like a loop from Rockingham Road to Mammoth Road in Manchester, going through Page Road, right? It loops around through Londonderry, it leaves Rockingham Road, Page Road goes east, and then it takes a corner
Yeah.
and goes into Manchester as Lucas Road, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
And then that road hits Mammoth Road.
correct.
So I was wondering, Mammoth Road at that point have sewer and water and just, it must.
I'll have to check with Manchester, Ian.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you have the yard in there and other things.
Right.
A hotel, so I
I
was
think
just
it was
wondering.
5,
if
6
they-
years ago, Manchester put sewer in there.
They did?
Yes, they tore up the whole Mammoth Road. There's before Demers, there's a pump station there. The line was from that pump station down to the town line with Londonderry, Manchester. And it services those apartments that have been built on
Yeah, the new ones.
the east side.
Thank you.
Tony?
Did I hear you say that you're feeling like the pipe size would have the capacity? I just ran the topos, the topography, and it looks like there's maybe 3 or 4 other properties that are on the downhill side. without
Yeah,
having
well,
to
put it this way, the
so-
flattest section of pipe we have is 8-inch at 0.5%.
Okay.
or half a foot per 100 feet.
Yeah.
That pipe, that flattest section of this proposed can handle 500,000 gallons
Okay.
of effluent a day, so, and
Got it.
our sewer study didn't come near that number. Of what we projected, the 45-page, 14-page, 13-page, plus that area to the east along Page Road
So,
would contribute.
got it. So, thank you. So, as I understand it, this is for the general public, so they can realize what we're talking about here. If today, for the sake of argument, we put in a 12-inch main, the flow wouldn't be strong enough to clean itself, and it would eventually just build up,
Correct.
and then
You
it
get-
would close itself off. So you can't think too far ahead with the size of a sanitary sewer pipe, because too big is actually worse than too small.
Correct.
Thank you.
You need a job, Tony?
Just a phys ed major.
Come upstairs tomorrow morning, 8:30.
He's retired.
Anything else for the board? If not, I'll take a motion.
One quick question. What was, you talked that Jack's Bridge is essentially ready to become a public service as opposed to private. Is there a specific trigger?
Yeah, again, it's 90% of the, I think it's 90% of the drainage area or something like that.
Okay.
So again, so we looked at it, size the pump station, size the main,
Yeah.
and then, and again, like I say, we're not gonna take it over for one user.
Yeah.
We're gonna be, and everything needs to be up to snuff.
Anybody else?
If there's no further questions, no further discussion, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the application as complete per staff's recommendation memorandum.
We
Oh,
already
geez.
did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Get away from each other.
Yeah, no kidding. See what happens?
You get the same disease I do. I forget all about it.
Can I make a motion to grant the approval of the conditional use permit for approximately 2,150 square feet of temporary wetland impact, and 6,025 square feet of temporary wetland buffer impact to construct the proposed sewer main extension from Sanborn Road northerly to Page Road, 14 Page Road, map 17, lot 45, and 11 Sanborn Road, map 15, lot 164, the Evans Family Limited Partnership, CJE Nominee Trust, owner and applicant.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Ted. Any further discussion by the board?
Are we all okay with the three conditions?
I was thinking maybe there should be a note to put on the plan, or this conditional use permit about future
So
restriction.
the comment from the Conservation Commission is to consider the restriction. So
Yeah.
if you'd like to leave that for the future, I'll defer to you if you want it as a note or condition.
To see what,
So I'd like,
board says here.
I'd like to vote on 2, and then let's talk about the
Yeah,
The third one,
third one.
yeah.
If
okay.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So the motion is with 1 and 2 of the conditions that have come from the Conservation Commission. Okay, everyone understands that? So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions, sure it's affirmative, and conditions 1 and 2 have been, approved with the conditional use permit. And it brings us to condition 3, whether we want to put it on there. We probably don't have all full information that we need, other than, I think it was definitely suggested by the Conservation Commission.
So my question. Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So my question would be, what are the negatives
Yeah.
for a builder if we, or the owner, or whatever, if we put this restriction on that land? Then nothing can be touched again, or I don't understand how it works.
It's going to restrict, it's going to restrict what development potential it may have in the future. obviously you gotta make some contingencies for the access and maintenance of the sewer line and what have you, but it would restrict further building.
But do I understand it's only for the dogleg portion?
That was what was suggested at the meeting last night.
That's correct.
So,
So that's basically, if I'm looking at this right, that's essentially to the northern, the back lot, tax map 086, right behind the middle, what is that, North School.
That's
That
where-
dog leg goes essentially to that corner, correct?
yeah, from where the house is, from the start of Sanborn Road
Yeah.
to the back of the property
lot
line of that
86.
house where the
Well,
easement is
it
going
doesn't
through.
include the residential lot. It's from the back of the residential lot to where the lot 45 widens out.
So this
Is
is
the area
all
that they
on,
were talking about.
The Evans property.
Roughly 200 feet?
275 wide by, it's about 7 acres.
Got it.
So, and as I said, I discussed that with Mr. Evans, and he doesn't wish to voluntarily put a conservation easement on that area at this time. He feels it's more appropriate when a specific land development proposal with buildings and parking and roads and what have you is put forward, determine what the impacts are, and then determine if it's, those impacts make that appropriate at that time.
So is it, so then, to my board mates, then is it, if there's a chance that that corridor can be used for further whatever needs to be in the ground, and we close off that opportunity to the landowner now, when there's so much we don't know, is that a good thing or not? I guess is really the question, and there's so much information that we don't have.
Yeah, I think it's possibly premature, you know, I think I'd need more info on it.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think we should be limiting the landowner for future development.
And then if we have to put a larger pipe down for the sewer, what happens then? At some point in the future.
Yeah,
So,
so I'm ready for a motion.
yeah,
You're- You're good.
yeah, I think we're
Yeah,
good,
we
because
got-
we voted on yes to 1 and 2.
1 and
so
2,
we're good.
and the
Thank you.
conditional use permit has been granted with conditions 1 and 2 on there. Okay, next.
Thank you very
Back
much.
to stuff here.
So, Mr. Chairman, just before we do move on, so we're, just to be clear, we are not acting on item number 3.
Correct.
That's correct.
Correct.
Only items 1 and 2. Okay.
Okay, next we have is a public hearing on an application for formal review of a site plan for proposed 100,000 square foot warehouse building and associated site improvements at 13 Page Road, tax map 17, lot 27, zone commercial 2. Charles Evan is the owner and Rhino Capital Advisors LLC is the applicant, and this has been continued from June 7th of 2023. So I think there was some off-site items and so forth, but just identify yourselves for our records, please, gentlemen, and you can do your presentation, and then we'll go through the loop.
Right on. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Kavanaugh. I'm the project applicant with Rhino Capital Advisors. With me is Rich Whitehouse from VHB, Tyler Murphy, my colleague from Rhino Capital, Jason Plord from VHB, and Laura Gandia from Divine Millimit. Last time we were here, like you mentioned, there was quite a bit of staff and peer review comments that needed to be addressed, mostly for the offsite improvements. But there were some for 13 Page Road as well. So tonight, we will present on the updates and revisions based on those comments. So, intro, skip that one. So the agenda, we'll touch base on how we got to this point tonight. Location, we'll discuss location, existing site, proposed site, just to reorientate ourselves. We'll talk about the updates to 13 Page Road. Take a quick pause for Q&A, and then transition into the off-site improvement discussion. So with that, communication review, like we mentioned last time, we started this back last year. And then since our planning board hearing in June, we had a meeting with town staff just to go over the comments. As Earl mentioned, ComCon hearing was last night, and here we are today on the 12th. So the location, again, off Exit 5 along Rockingham Road, Tri-State Sprinkler, Pawtucket Doggy Daycare, and Long Blue Cat Brewery are our neighbors behind us. Site overview, so there is wetlands, but we won't be impacting them. It's a little bit over 20% of the site. But as we mentioned, we're outside those buffer zones, so we're not impacting them. The site today is a pad-ready site. The work was previously done under a previous AOT permit. Single entry curb cut that we will be reusing, as well as the existing stormwater basins as well. So with that, I'll transfer it over to Rich to discuss the proposed and the updates. Sorry.
All right, thanks, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Again, for the record, Rich Whitehouse, project manager with VHB. VHB is the civil engineer, landscape architect, traffic engineer on the project. So again, just to quickly run through some of the key points that we touched on last time we were here. The proposed facility is a 75,000 square foot warehouse consisting of 70,000 square feet of warehouse space with 5,000 square feet of office, 63 parking spaces, including accessible and electric vehicle charging spaces. 4 loading docks are proposed at the rear of the building, and 11 knockouts for potential future loading dock usage. As Mike mentioned, the site is accessed from a single driveway connection to Page Road that you see there, kind of on the right, the far right side, the lower right corner of the developed area, and that serves both delivery vehicles and passenger vehicles. Again, just to build on what Mike was talking about, since we last met, we have worked to address comments received from the town of Londonderry and peer review consultants. At a high level, those updates consist of items such as the dumpster enclosure at the rear of the building being fully enclosed for screening purposes, providing formal design plans from the manufacturer and their designer of the proprietary structural stormwater system that's proposed out in front of the building. That's the subsurface system that we're using in concert with the existing surface basin that sits between the building and Rockingham Road. We touched up and provided some additional details and clarifications for how some of the loading dock retaining wall features are being handled, and refined some grading in that area. And then we also did just a small coordination item with the off-site improvements for the facility's proposed sanitary connection. On top of that, not listed here, but much finer finer detail in nature. We focused a lot on the stormwater design. The peer review consultant had many very technical comments that were pretty nuanced in nature, but valid nonetheless. So we've worked to refine the stormwater design and respond to those comments. Just a little too technical to feel necessary to discuss here. And so with that, I think we'll turn it back for any questions and follow-on discussion related to the development of the 13 Page Road site.
Okay, well, I'll do staff input, board, and then to the public.
You have a waiver at the top.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, that's in the future, but, again, that's as part of the design of the project. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, again, revised plans were received from VHB, and I'll just generally, looking at the design review items, items 1 through 4 are kind of repeated items. Again, As Mike indicated, again, there's been some significant progress with the offsite improvements. The applicant is well aware of what the expectations are, as well as the applicant and the Rhino, the applicant being Mr. Evans. So again, we did make some significant progress on advancing these plans. Item number 5, we're asking that they do some clarification regarding the grading, the slopes, curving at the entrance, test pit and boring information associated with the subsurface drainage system. Item 6, we're asking for some clarification on the construction details associated with the sediment forebay, the outlet outlet control structure. Item 7, we're asking that they address comments relative to the project drainage analysis, those being impacts to the abutters, the outlet control structure, modifications to the existing pond, and providing pond routing analysis associated with the project. Item 8 is to address the traffic review comments, and item number 9 is to verify the DRC comments from the planning, conservation, and the fire department, and the sewer division. As far as the traffic impact studies, we're requesting that they update the site plan to be provided in the report based on the subsequent revisions. Item 2, we're requesting an updated traffic impact study to incorporate the final page road improvements. And lastly, the applicant shall coordinate the preparation of the NHDOT permit for Page Road with the town. We had some comments related to the off-site improvements, those being for the roadway, sewer design, as well as the water design. So like I mentioned earlier, there has been some significant progress made to the off-site improvement plans. Therefore, staff is confident the owner and the applicant are now understanding our expectations and going forward, and therefore, this evening, we're recommending conditional approval of the plan. As Earl indicated and he presented earlier, they've come a long ways. They've got their wetlands permit application, their AOT permit application has been submitted. It's a tweak to their existing AOT permit. So staff is confident we can proceed. Thank you.
Waiver?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and there is one waiver. Again, so for the off-site improvements plan, that existing Page Road, that portion of Page Road, right, currently it's at about a 10% grade, so it's pretty steep. In their reconstruction of Page Road, they're gonna reduce that down to a 6% slope, 6.48% slope, or 6.44% slope. Our maximum is 6%, but we do allow up to 8%. So the applicant has requested a waiver from section 3.09, table 1, note 3, maximum grade of local road streets to allow a 6.44% maximum grade for 193 feet. Regulation requires a maximum roadway slope of 6 outright, with the ability to grant approval for a maximum road grade of 8 for a maximum length of 500 feet. Staff is supporting the granting of the waiver. The improvements that are being proposed, which are about 800 feet in length, they're adjusting both the horizontal and vertical alignment, and those will be some significant improvements to a substandard road here in the town, that being Page Road. So for that reason, staff does support the waiver request. Thank you.
Kelly?
I'm all set.
You all set? Okay, good. We'll start with Ann again.
Well, if the staff supports it, I do too.
Tony?
And I'm all set.
I'm all set.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm all set too.
Lynn?
I'm all set.
Okay,
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Ted?
I'm all set.
Bruce?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Anyone from the public or any abutters have any questions, comments or concerns in regard to this part of the site plan presentation?
Are we talking about the road?
That's coming next. Yeah, that's going to come next. We'll do the road. So you can proceed with the off-site improvements.
Very well. Thank you.
Good evening, Jason Plord with VHB, traffic engineering consultant on the project. If you can go to the next slide for me, Rich.
introduce myself. My name is Tyler Murphy. I'm with Rhino Capital, the applicant as well.
The information that you see on the slide in front of you was presented at our previous meeting, just really talking about the process that we went through, the trip generation estimates, the traffic study that we prepared. Based on the town's guidelines for preparation of a traffic study, the thresholds are 1,000 vehicles per day or 100 vehicles per hour. We're below those thresholds. But we still put together the full traffic study based on meetings with town staff. We coordinated with New Hampshire DOT District 5 to find out if this development was going to trigger the need for an independent review on their behalf and approvals. They said no. That's similar to the Jacks Bridge Road project in Sims Drive, where it's just about the volume of traffic entering the state highway system. So as Mr. Chartier had mentioned, we're definitely in agreement and in support of helping the town through the DOT process. We can't fill out the permit application, but we can provide as much support through that process as we can, like copies of the traffic study, copies of the site plans, things like that. If you can go to the next slide, thank you. So one of the questions that I believe that was brought up at the last meeting, unfortunately I was unable to attend due to an illness, but my understanding was that a question may have been raised regarding the design of Page Road or the upgrades of Page Road. How much traffic could the redesign handle, things like that. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is that our understanding, we've been working with Hannah Swanson, Earl's group, to be able to make sure that the design is going to be in compliance with town standards, making sure that we can tie in the redesign of Page Road at our driveway to make sure that we're not having Page Road up here and our driveway down here. Want to make sure that we're all in sync and working together. New Hampshire DOT also has some guidelines that we took a look at. You heard Earl earlier talking about how the design is meeting the town and AASHTO standards. We also looked at New Hampshire DOT standards. New Hampshire DOT has a minimum geometric and structural guides for local roads and streets. It's just a guideline to be able to follow. Why is that important? It's important because they have their different thresholds based on the volume of traffic. The town standards do not. They're based on the type of classification of a roadway, but not based on the volume of traffic. So I figured that this information might be helpful in understanding how much traffic this design would be able to accommodate. So what we had done was we had taken a look at the different thresholds. It's 0 to 50, 50 to 200, 200 to 750, 750 to 1,500. So that's vehicles per day. Just to make sure that we're putting things into perspective. This is right on New Hampshire DOT's website, and anybody can download it. It's not a problem at all. And what we had done was we had taken a look at the traffic volumes that are out there on Page Road on a daily basis. Based on New Hampshire DOT's website, they have 178 vehicles per day counted on Page Road, on this section of Page Road. Next thing that we took a look at was the excavation project going on at 14 Page Road. Steve Pernaugh had put together a memo submitted to the town and coordinated with New Hampshire DOT on that project, and they estimated about 108 vehicles per day. And then our traffic added on top of that. And throughout the process, we used two different methodologies, one that our original traffic study was based on, then a second one that the peer review consultant had asked us to use, which was higher. Based on that higher volume of traffic, that would be 157 vehicles per day. So in total, the amount of traffic from our development, the excavation project going on at 14 Page Road, and the existing traffic volumes is 443 vehicles per day. So if you look at the circled item up there, which is the 750 to 1,500 vehicles per day, that threshold there is what our understanding is that Hannah Swanson is following as far as the design of the roadway width, the shoulder widths, all of the different components that come into it as far as the pavement type, the slopes, everything that comes into these guidelines would be satisfying the 750 to 1,500 vehicles per day. So that leaves us with a buffer or remaining capacity of over 1,000 vehicles per day. So after the roadway project is upgraded, after the Rhino development goes in, and the existing traffic volumes that are out there today, so based on the existing, that was pre the excavation project, plus the excavation project, so those three components, all added together, you're still going to have some extra capacity of over 1,000 vehicles per day. I ran through those numbers very quickly. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I just wanted to at least provide that information as a guideline, as a standard that we typically follow. We did not prepare the design plans, but our understanding is that Hayner Swanson has put those plans together to be able to meet these standards. If you go to the next slide. In addition, we know that there could be some future development, and we wanted to be able to make sure that there would be sufficient capacity available or opportunity available to provide more capacity at the Rockingham Road and Page Road intersection. Right now, you have a single lane approaching going westbound on Page Road to the signal. What happens in the future? Well, I talked about Page Road upgrades being able to accommodate up to 1,500 vehicles per day. Well, that doesn't mean that the intersection can handle another 1,500 vehicles per day. That's just about the roadway design. So if there's any development in the future, and there's any widening that's needed out here on Page Road, the applicant is donating or giving up a dedicated frontage of 18 feet beyond the right-of-way onto the property. So it would be 50 feet from the center line all the way into the property for about 400 to 500 feet. So in case you need 3 lanes approaching on that, on Page Road going westbound to the signal, at least it's going to be there. That land is going to be available. Is it going to be needed? We have no idea because we don't know what's going to go on that other property. But in case if a 3-lane approach is needed out there, there's plenty of width that would be available. We just don't know what it's going to need. But at least we want to at least be a good neighbor and plan for the future to provide that in case any widening would be needed. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, we'll do the same thing. We'll go to staff, the board, and then the public. John?
Again, I pretty much covered it upon when did my other presentation, to be honest with you, Art.
Okay.
I'm all set.
Kelly?
We've covered everything on staff side.
I'll start at the other end with Bruce. You all set? Ted?
I am good.
Okay, Jake?
For the roadway improvements, are you proposing changing or regrading it a little bit? Are we getting rid of some of that sharp turn?
Yeah, we have a diagram. It's actually, I think, the second to last slide that will show that. But yes, it's a decrease in sort of that curve that you're referring to exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think I see that on the page 18. The orange is your existing one, and the blue is showing the upgraded roadway.
That's correct.
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Lynn?
I'm all set.
All set. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm all set too.
Okay, Tony?
So so how does it work? I appreciate that in the plan, there's a donated 18 feet and whatever the arc needs to be to straighten out the road, but how does that work? When it's time, who pays for that? The upstream new business that's creating the extra, so we're allowed to tack that onto a,
Those would be considered off-site improvements, Tony.
got it,
Yeah.
thank you.
One discussion that I'd had with the applicant was, again, you can also look at your land and do all the improvements at once. And there was some resistance. So when we go talk to DOT, we'll see what they say. Mike?
Thank you.
Okay, Ian?
All set.
All set.
I did have one more, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Is Page Road a no-through trucking road? No.
I believe it is. I believe it is posted as no through trucking. Somebody that lives there every day, Johnny?
No.
It's not posted no through trucking?
No, I mean, living down at the end of Page Road, we wind up getting misguided tractor trailer trucks going to the airport in our barnyards every day.
Yeah.
In mud, trying to get out.
But is it posted no through trucks?
I never seen it.
I can't envision it either.
Look at it on I don't think there
Yeah, I
is.
don't recall.
And, well, I'll wait until I get up there, but.
I think that would be one of my concerns is, if it's not posted, posting it, and maybe restricting the access out of the lot to the left. Well, that would be, there was a no through trucking sign, that would negate that issue, so.
It's similar to what the board dictated for the Loomis site.
Yeah, they can't go left up
They
Litchfield,
can't take a
right?
left.
They have to go right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's posted on,
What happens as somebody that lives down there, what happens if you have to get a truck down there?
so again, this,
Well, if you have to get it, you're saying if a truck is,
Delivering a load of,
that's not through trucking, that would be
destinational.
That would be
Correct.
destinational, yeah.
and I think what Jake is referring to, though, is having Rhino post a sign on their, as their vehicle is leaving their site, no
Yeah.
left turns.
Yeah.
They have to
They get stuck.
dictate right turn for trucks, correct.
I think that would be, fair.
So I think you'd need two sets of signs, one at the entrance,
Two-page road.
two-page road, and then another one coming out of the site of this new building.
Correct.
So I'm just gonna be kind of rude for a minute. Truck drivers aren't the swiftest. They won't even be able to
Especially
get,
Swift drivers.
they won't even be able to get to Rhino's site, some of these guys. That's why they end up in Johnny's barnyard and,
Yeah, they look at their GPS and,
So you're saying if we post on the bottom of Page Road, trucks are just gonna keep going, that we're trying to make a delivery to this new site because they don't understand the word through?
can't put too many words on it, because they won't understand it.
If that's the case and we were to, make it limited to the current site, would there be something we could do to the entrance that would, to the exit of the site, excuse me, that would promote vehicles turning right?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
Or like right turn only?
Yeah.
we have a site in Taunton that has a somewhat similar condition. It's a different scenario, but it's in a business park. And so we actually had the sign, if we're looking at the screen, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this succinctly. When we're looking at the entrance, you see the two rumble strips that are there.
Yeah.
And then you see that sort of like jagged area that's getting cut off, but it's denoting vegetation, just to the right of that cursor.
Yep.
Sorry, just a little bit more to the right.
You can control it
Oh, I can? Oh, geez.
with your pointer.
Oh, wow, okay. Oh, wow, this is really something. I'm talking about like right here. We could have a sign that's actually facing in towards the site, because that's who we're trying to talk to. In terms of the truck drivers, it basically says no left-hand turn. Because that's really who we're trying to address and not have them take a left-hand turn. And in general, they don't want to, they're trying to get back to the highway, but I hear the concern, and people do make mistakes. That can be a reminder that as they're coming out to make their turn, do not take a left turn here. And it can say no through or whatever the language is, but that's something that we have for a somewhat similar condition on a different site.
So how about then if we did, if they're not smart enough to understand, thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me. If they're not smart enough, if we put a sign here that says no through trucking, how about then if we put it right here?
Yeah.
Yep.
That said no through
Yeah.
trucking,
Yeah.
and then you had one up here.
It says no
that said
left-hand turn.
No left-hand turn.
That's pretty hard to mistake, no left-hand turn.
Yeah,
But,
if they don't
uh,
understand left and right, then
Yeah.
we got other issues.
Don't have to turn more, but.
I think if we could do that, you know, and you had something coming out that said no left-hand turn, and then you had the note through trucking where Tony just suggested, I think is pretty reasonable. Sorry to have my back to you guys.
No problem.
Ted?
I think it makes sense, because I think to John's point somewhat, it's at or just after the entrance, so that, it's not that, kind of confusion moment. I think that makes sense, so it's fine with us.
Is something, Ted?
Yeah, I think if we just leave it for Rhino to put up their sign of saying no left turns, that'll be fine, as I see all over town of the no through
Yeah.
truck signs, and tractor trailers go on those roads all the time. A fine example is Bancroft Road. There's tractor trailers that go on it all day long, and there's no through truck signs on both sides. So to put them up is just kind of a waste of time
if they're just going to ignore the signs. And if we're not going to be policing the roads when there's tractor trailers on the roads and it says no through trucks.
That's same with Stonehenge.
No enforceable
Yeah,
right if
yeah,
there was
yeah,
no, if
yeah,
there was no through trucking sign, we would have no enforceable
You
right.
have to put the
Doesn't seem
sign
like it's
there.
enforceable as it is.
Well, it's rather than have the
we can
sign
bring-
there, then they get grounds to enforce
We can bring that
it.
up at the safety committee meetings.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Board have anything else? None? I'll go to the public for any questions, comments, and concerns in regards to the off-site improvements. Yep. And also the record, Johnny has stepped down for this site plan.
So one of the confusions with regards to, this isn't my comment, but I think one of the confusions to the more recent volume of trucking that gets off course and going down there is that I don't know if it's a fact, but I always assumed that when you got to Rockingham Road, you were turning left onto Grenier Field Road. And I think at some point it changed to Page Road. And then right after Old Mammoth Road, it changed back to Grenier Field Road again. So I don't know, and I'm disclosing this, I don't know if what I'm representing is truth, but I think that led to the confusion. That everybody always turned, you got to the light, or there was never even a light there, but you always assumed you were turning on left onto Grenier Field, or you turned right onto Page Road. And I think that little section got renamed Page. It probably always was named Page, but.
Well, that road wasn't always in that place before Rockingham Road. Page Road actually started 2 electrical poles north of Grenier Field Road. There was a jog in the road.
That's it.
Yeah, it's, if you can imagine, that Grenier Field Road didn't go straight past Old Mammoth Road. It stopped, took a jog and went, and Page Road started at that point.
Yeah.
Because
well,
if you went straight, you'd run into
something
Tuttle's garage.
something changed at one point in time.
it's-
And that, all I'm saying is if there was a hard indicator that said, this is all Grenier Field Road, and this is all Page Road, I think that the trucks that do get off course may not get off course as often. But that's different.
Yeah, that'd be a mission for the town council to deal with.
What's that?
The naming of roads, town council.
Yeah, I know. So I was just answering that question, is
So
why,
Ted, you can bring that to the council.
why they get off course and.
Yes, and potentially maybe better signage.
Yeah. So, my concern is largely that the curve of the road, which you guys said you're improving, and because it is a huge blind corner and there's a huge elevation change. So when you come up, you leave Route 28, you come up, you go around a big corner, at the same time the road drops way off. So it's basically you hope and pray. So when you come around that corner, you tuck as much, if you're a frequent traveler on it, you tuck as much to this side. If you're going towards Route 28, you tuck as much to that side. And if you're riding a bike on it or walking, you actually switch lanes and make sure, you can see the car coming in case you have to ditch it in the woods. So that's a really tough corner. So you guys are saying, from a staff perspective, that you can see now the
Yep.
way they realigned it?
They've changed the horizontal and the vertical geometry, John,
So you
to
can
meet,
see somebody coming around that corner?
to meet 35 mile per hour design speed. If somebody's going 60 miles an hour, all bets are off,
Yeah.
as you know.
Okay.
And that existing roadway is 19 to 21 feet in width. I totally know what you're saying,
Yeah, so they're increasing the width?
to 30 feet.
Yeah. So,
Would you mind just putting up page 18 so you can see the two differences in existing and proposed?
Who's doing
I think it's
Go
page
ahead,
18,
Howard.
slide 18.
Get nervous touching that thing.
It's one with the colors.
There you go.
Right at the top.
Stop there.
And
I'll
then
go at the bottom.
the current existing orange, the grade of the road was 10%? And it's going down to under 6.5, correct?
Why couldn't we get it to 6 if our standard is 6?
Because again, yeah, Earl, we had looked at it. Yeah.
So, the total length of those improvements is 1,100 feet, which is not very much when you start changing vertical and horizontal curves. We also have a reverse curve, which town regulations say when you've got reverse horizontal curve, you've got to have a 100-foot tangent in there. You just have a 100-foot tangent. So all of the elements that we're correcting are hard to do in that short a distance. So we met everything. The one thing that that gave a little, very minor, which you've already proved, was that maximum grade. And we're going from 10% to less than 6.5, as was just said. That was the one item that we had a minor deviation, but it was still within the town's regulations, within the board's powers to waive that requirement. And we were way down on the low end. We're less than 25% of what you're allowed to, the difference between 6% and 8%. So when you change one of those elements, it affects another. So that was the one thing that had to give a little bit. But everything else, it meets town standards, AASHTO standards, and it's much better designed. I think that blind corner that you're concerned about, the roadway, you can see how far the roadway is getting pushed to the north. That's cutting that corner, that kind of blind corner referring to. We've got a slope easement in there. We're cutting off that high knob that's kind of creating the blind spot. We're widening that shoulder. So that's going to be a much better, much safer situation. And it meets, the existing road doesn't meet any kind of acceptable design standard. What we're proposing does.
Earl, how long did you say the length of the
Improvements?
improvements are? 1,200 feet?
About 1,100.
1,100?
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of how long, if I understood you correctly, in order to get you to 6%, the length of your improvement would have to be?
I couldn't tell you, but what I can tell you is the difference between 6% and 6.44%.
Is very small.
The effort's not worth it.
Yeah.
It would be imperceptible. There's no, it's just not worth it.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's my concern, is like that road is terrible. And my other concern, I'll beat this drum all day long, is not everybody, regardless of signage, goes right to Route 28. They go down Page. There's no thought in the eyes of the town as to what we're gonna do with the rest of it. We have development coming in. There's no forward thinking towards TIF districts or anything like that, where you could put some monies aside. No, you can't charge impact fees, but put monies aside for future development of Page Road. So everybody else is just getting left hung out to dry. So the project's a great project. I like the project, appreciate what they're doing with the road, but, we're just fixing one little thing and letting everybody else, I know I was told one time it's the worst road in the town of Londonderry, but there's no thoughts to it. The other thing that I will just point out as a member of the public is that I see a lot of applicants come through the town, and in their presentation, they were saying, it's 400 trips, and and with this and that, and it can hold another 1,000 trips, so that should be enough. But I think we've beat applicants up pretty bad in the past about, well, what if that changes from a diesel station to a bank, or what's the potential build out? And again, it's like an afterthought. We don't give any thought to all the land that's out there that's accessible as to what the potential build-out is. I like the fact you're leaving a strip on the other side, and when he comes in for his other lot, we should get a strip on the other side as well to be able to do it. But there's, I think you guys reported that there was additional traffic count of maybe 1,000 additional users over and above what your use was, right?
That was just in referring to the road's capacity with the new design. So not from us. So our site specifically is 157 trips. That's what's projected. And what we're referring to was basically just that the road, when it's built out, will have a capacity for an additional 1,000, not coming from us. We're just saying in general, to your point, future development, whatever it may be, we don't know. But definitely not from our site, not from 13 Page Road.
Yeah.
Just based on the design. So that's where the 1,000 number came from.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So an additional 1,000 trips, you max out. So then the road becomes substandard again. So it's something that I think the town should really address. Because not everybody, regardless of posting, is just gonna go that way. And it's the worst road in town.
Well, maybe it's because of the GIS systems now. They take you down roads that are,
GPS.
Pardon?
GPS. Not GIS.
I know what you mean.
GPS,
I know
oh,
what you
excuse
mean.
me. Sorry. GIS systems, I mean, they'll take people into a boat launch into the water. You hear about that, so,
And there's,
you
and
know,
now there's remote vehicles that rely on them, so.
not me, I tell you.
They should get the information accurate, that's,
So part of it was just,
Yeah, I think we hear you, Gianni. So
Okay,
that's-
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for, we have a waiver and to the motion itself.
Mr. Chair, I would like to grant the waiver to section 3.09.R, in that this waiver can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good.
Motion by Jake, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ted. Any further discussion on this waiver? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and chair votes affirmative. Motion carries, and the waiver has been granted. Okay. There's two waivers we granted for acceptance purposes only.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so we need those two waivers.
Okay, so
No,
Yeah,
so
you-
you've granted them.
You've granted them for
For
acceptance,
conditional- yeah.
and now they
Acceptance.
become conditions of approval. Should you
Okay.
choose to vote that way
Okay,
this
so
evening.
part of the conditions,
Yes.
okay. I didn't want to leave anything out.
Nope.
So these
we've done.
1 and 2 are now checklist item, and section 4.01, those are now conditions, correct?
If that's how you act this evening, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yep. Now we get the motion.
And just, please remember to provide some clarity on the signage for the trucks.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to grant conditional approval of the application for formal review of a site plan for a proposed 75,000 square foot warehouse building and associated site improvements, 13 Page Road, map 17, lot 27, zone C2. Charles Evans, owner, and Rhino Capital Advisors LLC applicant, in accordance with plans prepared by VHB dated October 13th, 2022, last revised June 21st, 2023, with the precedent conditions to be fulfilled within 120 days of the approval and prior to plan signature, and general and subsequent conditions of approval to be fulfilled as noted in the staff's recommendation memorandum dated July 12th, 2023. And I would like to add that a no-through trucking sign be put just after the entrance to the facility, as well as a no left turn sign put at the exit of the facility.
Second.
Is it, okay, that, okay with everyone? Okay, Ted did the second. Oh,
Bruce can have
I know it's from down there. Okay, Bruce did the second. Dick made the motion. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and you have a conditionally approved site plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll try to remember to send you that stuff tomorrow.
Where are we going next?
Next, we have, we're getting into our conceptual plans, of which we have three. The first one is a conceptual site plan discussion for a proposed 175,000 square foot high cube warehouse at 60 Pettingill Road, tax map 14, lot 49-2. 1 Pettingill Road Realty is the owner, and Lansing Melbourne Group LMG is the applicant. And conceptual discussions are just that. We exchange ideas back and forth. There's nothing that is permanent at all. It's just a discussion back and forth. Two-way street. You can ask you questions, you can ask us questions too. Just identify yourself for our records, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bob Duval. I'm Chief Engineer at TF Moran, and with me to my left here is Peter Floats. Peter is the owner of LMG Group, Lansing Melbourne Group, and he is the applicant. And I'm just going to point out at this point that the next item after this one is the same applicant, a similar project, right basically diagonally across the street from this one. So we may go back and forth and talk about the interrelationship as we go, but of course, we'll have a separate agenda item for that.
Yeah.
So with that, Peter, you want to say a word or two? about it?
As always, Bob, you took all the words out of my mouth. So I'm here as an observer more than anything else and to provide answers. I apologize, I was not here for the hearings that we had on the site across the street, 55. I was traveling in other places, so again, we're here mostly to say thanks for listening to us, and we're investing pretty heavily in the Merrimack Valley. We're under construction in Merrimack with a project right now, about to start in Nashua with one, and looking forward to these. So with that, Bob's got a presentation, and I'm observing as much as anything else like you guys. I may have as many questions as you do.
Feel free.
You talk, but I know you will.
So the plan that you have up on your screens right now is for the 60 Pettingill Road site. And this is the site directly across the street from 55 Pettingill, which you all approved, the New Balance operation there earlier this month. And we're directly across the street. The next agenda item is diagonally across the street. That would be on the northwest quadrant of that Resorick and Pettingill intersection. Pettingill actually becomes Roundstone on the other side, and that would be the next agenda item. And the reason these two are moving together in tandem, other than the fact that both want to be built as soon as possible, is that the Roundstone site is a big cut site, and this site is a big fill site. So it makes a lot of sense and saves a lot of money for the development of these properties, as well as trucking and other impacts, if they're built simultaneously. So, that's our attempt, is to try to keep these on track together as we move ahead through design and design review process. So, the 60 Pettingill site is for a high cube warehouse, which has 175,000 square feet.
Could you explain what a high cube warehouse is?
Sure. A high cube warehouse is generally a warehouse of about 200,000 square feet, a little bit more, well, actually, it could be a lot more, but generally in that 150 to 200,000 square foot range, has high inside roof heights so that it can, and high cube essentially refers to that, the cubic feet of the goods that are stored in the warehouse require high ceiling heights and large floor area. So they typically take and handle large packages and large amounts of packages. They have a lot of dock space or dock numbers for their size, because the idea is that you have goods that are coming and going fairly quickly. They're not long-term storage. Goods come in, and they could be goods from a manufacturer that get broken down and distributed to other wholesale warehouses or other retail users. They don't typically go to individual users, so it's unlike a parcel hub, like a Amazon or a UPS hub, where the goods are shipped out directly to end users. Lots of little trucks. These are big trucks in and well, mostly big trucks out. Another factor that distinguishes high cube warehouses is relatively low traffic counts. So these are typically have anywhere from 150 to 200 employees for the size that we're talking about here. So, you know, you have something on the order of 300 trips a day and possibly maybe 75, 50 to 100, say, trucks per day. And the other thing is that because there's so much truck activity going in and out, that they tend to avoid peak hours because, you know, trucks don't like to get stuck in traffic any more than we do. In fact, probably dislike it even more. So that shift schedules for these type of uses are typically off-peak hours, and therefore it results in, you know, fairly low peak hour traffic volumes. So I have some additional,
Can I add something to that?
please.
Just to give you some specifics around it, typically the ceiling heights in these buildings will be 32 feet to 34 feet clear. And we'll use a special type of fire sprinkler protection so that it protects not just the building itself, but the racks of, because the value in the building, the stuff that's inside the building is generally worth more than the building. These have come into being over the past few years primarily as a result of the fact that the tenants have begun to realize that we lease the buildings by the square foot, but they use them by the cubic foot. So the taller they can get us to make the buildings, the cheaper it gets for them. A lot of what we're seeing in the Merrimack Valley is firms fleeing the high cost of Massachusetts. And a lot of that is because the inventory there is a lot of 14 to 18-foot ceilings. And if you're piling up toilet paper, you can pile it up 32 feet high in a building that costs you exactly the same as a building with a 14-foot ceiling. All you need is a taller forklift. So that's kind of the advent of what we're seeing here.
Okay. You don't stack storage trailers like those metal storage
No, ma'am.
containers
No,
in
no,
there?
this is
Okay.
boxes of stuff.
Okay.
Generally on a pallet, generally with a barcode on it that a scanner on a forklift can read so they know what it is and what rack it goes in. It's amazingly organized.
So, okay.
It doesn't look like my desk.
Whatever comes into your, onto your property is unloaded into,
Into a rack and
Okay.
then broken down in some way and redistributed to trucks that take them now out to someone who's going to distribute them to someone else. We might get 10,000 air conditioners and they're grouped together and they end up 50 of them going to the AC guy in Manchester and 50 of them going to the AC guy in Nashua and the like. That's the kind of stuff you'll see here.
okay, thank you for that explanation. Thank you.
And Peter touched on another important distinguishing characteristic of high cube warehouses. They're generally highly automated, so that a smaller number of people using sophisticated equipment can handle the logistics inside the building. So the site, as we said, is at the intersection of Pettingill and Ray Resorick. Access would be through the existing driveway that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. That site immediately adjacent to the right is the UPS Pratt & Whitney facility, logistics facility. And that'd be a shared driveway that was foreseen at the time of approval of that a common driveway would also access this parcel as well as the Prologis UPS parcel. That, just for reference, that's lot 49-0, 49-2 is the subject lot. There's only 3-4 abutters on this site. One is the adjacent similar facility to the right, just talked about. The other is the New Balance, a similar manufacturing facility, but of a similar size. And this site, and then conservation land to the south. And then across Ray Resorick is land that's owned by the state. So this is an industrial use in an industrial neighborhood. And it fits very well to the zoning objectives of the Gateway Business Zone, which is to have a variety of uses. And one of the key factors in the Gateway Business Zone is to have transportation reduction measures. And these facilities are sort of limiting in terms of traffic because they don't want to, first of all, they don't generate a lot of traffic. Secondly, they don't want to have peak hour traffic. So it fits well in that neighborhood and accomplishes that important goal of the Gateway Business District. Utilities already serve the site. They're already installed in Pettingill Road and stubbed into the site. Water, sewer, well, actually, water and sewer are being extended in part by the New Balance project. And sewer would be installed in a sleeve, an existing sleeve across the road onto the other side of the road and then running a utility easement up to the sewer manhole where you just saw that the New Balance facility is discharging. So there's already provisions for utility service to this site. Traffic we've already talked about. The site, the lot coverage does meet zoning criteria. We're 75% coverage is permitted, and we're something closer to 60% of lot coverage in this site. So we meet all zoning criteria. We don't need any relief from that regard. Drainage, generally speaking, is going to be heading to the low point, which is in the lower left of the site. That would be the south east corner of the site. There's a detention pond already existing. Southwest corner of the site. That's along Ray Resort. That's a detention pond already existing. And that would be the natural outlet of all runoff. Of course, it will be detained and treated on close to where it touches the ground and then outletted down to the detention pond on the lower left. There are some wetland impacts associated with this project. Approximately 22,000 some odd square feet. It sounds like a lot, but what it is essentially, this is all, as almost all of this land is, former gravel pit. And these are essentially just artifacts left behind over the last couple of decades by how much material was left and where. They weren't taking a lot of time carefully grading the site so it would naturally drain, so these little pockets would be left behind, very shallow pockets, and they turn into wetlands over time. But we'll be seeking a wetland impact, wetland fill permit from the DES. We're reaching out to the DES to start that process. These wetlands would be completely filled on the site. There'd be no remnant of those particular artificial wetlands remaining. I think we've probably discussed the traffic enough. I'll just give you the actual numbers for this. The peak hour traffic for 175,000 high cube warehouses, 18 trips in the AM peak hour, 20 trips in the PM peak hour, 23 trips in the Saturday peak hour, of which there's really only a handful of trucks in any of those peak hours. The daily traffic is, during a weekday, is approximately 284 trips, and the Saturday, since many of these are 7-day-a-week operations, 204 total trips in the day. So you see you're well below the thresholds that were just explained in connection with the previous project. We've done an initial trip analysis, and as we move into design, we'll be doing a traffic study and working closely with John as the town is looking at a comprehensive traffic study of the whole Pettingill corridor area, and we'll be working closely with him to show what our impacts will be and how that would affect future development in the area. But the impacts of this particular project are, as you can see, quite small. So I'd be happy to answer questions at this point.
Okay, to staff and the board. So, John?
Quick question, Peter. Is this 24/7 operation?
I don't have a user yet, so I can't tell you that I know, but I would anticipate it likely would be.
The potential is there? Okay. And as Bob indicated, we've been discussing Pettingill Road study, so Bob's correct. It's on our radar. That's it.
Absolutely. So, I just wanted to address the town's forward thinking. So this is a prime example of that. We are working on a comprehensive traffic plan study for the Pettingill Road area and beyond. And when I say beyond, I'm referring to as far as Page Road. So we are most definitely forward thinking in that regard, and taking all those things into consideration for the items that we're aware of for development and potential future development. So.
You only work with what you know, so it's, okay, good. Ann?
Well, what type of trucks bring your product into your property? Type of trucks, 18-wheelers?
Yes, these would be almost exclusively 18-wheelers.
Okay, and same thing, it moves the product out?
A combination of box trucks and 18-wheelers.
Okay, well, I'm concerned about the entrance and exit point. It's an unsignalized single road, single lane road in each direction. I'm very concerned about that. That's why I brought it up last time at the New Balance discussion. And now finding out that it's going to, where your customers are, or clients are entering and exiting your property is at about the same point as New Balance has an exit from their property going west, that's left only. Same point. I think we ought to seriously take a look at that intersection and do something. We're getting to a point where we need 2 lanes in each direction because the amount of traffic that's trying to merge onto and off of Pettingill Road onto the different, into the different businesses, I think. And at what point is too much traffic before we act on something? What point? I'm just worried about 18-wheelers cutting across that road when people, people in cars and everybody else are trying to get to the light at Raymond Vechutic Drive, and I see an big issue there. I don't know what could be done. It's interesting what you're bringing here, but I'm worried about the safety aspect of that intersection. That's unsignalized, and it's going to be, we're going to have large trucks, cars going through that area at the same time. People coming, I should say your trucks that may come from Grangerfield Road to Harvey Road through and taking a left from Pettingill Road onto your property. Or just the same ones coming, I'm not as concerned about the ones coming from the highway, Raymond Vechutic Highway, and just taking a right into your property. But I think something needs to be done before,
This is the very subject that we're working with the town and town staff on. The town is commissioned a traffic study and working on that. And us engineers and developers are forwarding information about projects we have in the pipeline or coming up soon to John, so you can include that in that. The DOT is part of that conversation too, because that Ray-Resorick intersection is theirs, of course. So we're all working together to make sure that in our traffic studies, we address what are the impacts, what are the delays, what are the queues at the unsignalized and signalized intersections all along the road to make sure exactly that the roads can handle that capacity.
Right, I know, but I mean, for example, if you have a tractor trailer coming, going west on Pettingill Road, and they need to take a left on your property, that'll back up traffic behind if cars are coming off of Raymond Victoric Highway and going east on it, and you can't get the truck. I mean, the truck can't drive through the intersection onto your property. So I see congestion there. How many, you said you have shifts, multiple shifts?
Typically.
Typically. How many shifts would you say?
Well, I don't want to make up an answer because we don't have a user yet. So I just can't tell you.
Okay.
Is it possible there could be 3 shifts going? Absolutely. In this type of building, it wouldn't surprise me. I think all the questions you're asking are reasonable questions. It's why we're here for conceptual. And I think what I know after 40 years of doing this stuff is the last thing we want to do is look at this all by itself, because what we'll do is we'll be able to convince you that our couple of trucks won't make a difference. So it's important that we look system-wide at everything that's coming along the road, because the last thing I want is to lose a tenant because they say, well, we're going to come there except the traffic's so bad.
But that's also a big cut-through for the residents of Londonderry who want to get out to the highway and travel south towards Nashua or towards Manchester. I know I use it a lot.
Yeah, I think we're all well aware of this, Ann.
Right,
And
I
and I
know,
know that our staff has been studying it.
Right, I know, but New Balance has a signal as entrance and exit point also, and you folks don't. This is your only exit point, correct?
Well, this is only conceptual right now, so.
I know.
mean, we're
I am
not- we're
fairly
not so-
confident that our town staff will be looking at the traffic here.
Absolutely, we're already looking at
Very
it
in-depth.
preliminarily.
I think they're further ahead than we probably realize, Ian. So it's-
Well, I'm sitting here and not privy to what
Well, we
you've been
don't have a
discussing.
formal application yet, so we can't give definitive responses, but we're certainly utilizing the conceptual information that's been provided, and we're using that alongside our consultant to, you know, create a more accurate, comprehensive report and plan for the future.
Okay. But the property, what's going on the property, looks good to me. But it's just that,
Tony?
Sure. First of all, thank you for your attempt at investing in Londonderry. I think this is a perfect application for this site. Ann was talking earlier about, just so that nobody's confused, Ray Wazorek Drive.
excuse me, it's Raymond
Raymond
Victoric.
Wazorek Drive. I think that with several mentions of off-peak use. Off-peak use typically is when the general public is not on the roads. And I think it's important to note that. We can't guarantee anything at this point because we're talking about, you don't have a user, and this whole topic is conceptual anyway. I would, though, have a little bit of concern of how close this driveway is to Pettingill Road. Just doing quick measurements with a typical parking space being 20 feet long, it looks like you get 80 feet or maybe 90 feet of stacking there. Tractor trailer is 40 feet plus the tractor, am I correct? Give it, depending on which type of tractor trailer it is. And you also have another user. So I'm not sure that's a good spot, just for stacking purposes. Also, to Ann's point, coming off of Pettingill and coming into the site, to take a right into your site, you wouldn't want to have the tractor trailers waiting on Pettingill to try and get into your shared use road and then take a right into your site. So a little bit of concern there. I don't know, there has to be a reason why that spot was picked. chances are it's topographical.
It's
But-
this, it's the furthest spot away from Pettingill that we actually touch the road.
Got it.
So other than that, we get onto property we don't own. And
Understood.
we're assuming that when the subdivision was granted for this property, that's where everybody assumed access would be.
Got it.
We're trying to not put another curb cut on Pettingill, but I think in conversations with staff and the traffic management folks, we're gonna get feedback on what the best strategy is there. I don't disagree with you. I see us providing some kind of widening there. And in the end, it may not be as clear as Bob thinks it is on his miraculous artwork here, but what we've tried to do is build a ring road around the car parking so that the trucks and the cars are separated. So the idea there is the cars go in and to the left and swing around because there's a grade issue there, and the trucks come straight across the site and whip around the back. I use whip loosely, but that was important to us too, to make sure that the trucks are kept separate from the cars so that they can flow unimpeded. No question, we've got, we're sitting here building a building that's, 5 acres under roof, and we're gonna end up focusing our entire discussion and effort on 80 feet over by the road. There's no doubt about it. It's,
Yeah.
every project is.
Yeah, that's how it works, unfortunately, but I appreciate your efforts. The only other thing I would say is you're gonna end up at Heritage, and understand in Londonderry, even though it's industrial, we like pretty. And so we want a warehouse to try and not look like a warehouse. We don't want it to be a birdhouse, but you get what I'm saying. So if you could keep that in mind.
Have you seen the garage we built in Manchester that looks like a mill building?
I haven't, no.
That's this new garage is ours, so
Oh, okay.
from the highway, it looks like a spaceship, and from
Yeah,
the
yeah,
mill
yeah.
yard, it looks like a mill building.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
in
yeah.
my mother's words, a prison.
Is that the one with the cage on it? It looks like it has a cage on it.
It's a $2 million
Had a little
cage,
trouble getting
ma'am.
that through.
With all due respect, it's a $2 million cage.
Yeah.
At any rate, if you could keep that in mind when you come back with your conceptuals and your elevations and whatever, this is.
Everyone's a critic.
We
Yeah.
do have some, in your packet, we do have some, very basic massing diagram type elevations. But the idea is to break up those long facades.
Interestingly, we are using the same architect that Rhino's using, so it's the
And
same
you will be
folks.
meeting with the Heritage Commission. So we have a Londonderry lookbook, and you can look at some of the designs that are out there now.
Okay.
On Pettingill, so.
Just so you know, we don't have that elevation.
Yeah, we don't have.
No, we don't have it
them.
on our,
What you spoke about, the elevations.
Oh, you don't have?
We
them?
don't have them.
Nice.
Kelly,
Good job,
do you-
Bob.
Submit it, Peter. Do you have them on the?
I'm doing the next presentation.
Yeah, it could be in the next presentation, I don't know.
Good thing you came.
Okay,
You've been dealing with.
it's time for sure.
Anyway, thank you for your
Sure.
commitment, and we'll all work together and
Evidently.
hopefully make it happen for you.
But we will, of course, provide
Understood.
attractive elevations.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll be just brief. It's a really cool concept, really cool, building. It seems to be something that obviously fits into that space correctly. I do echo the traffic concerns, but I was really excited and to hear that the town is working with businesses and from an economic development standpoint. And thank you for working with the town on that. I think to your point earlier, you're not going to get tenants if traffic is a mess. So it's obviously it's in our best interest to do that. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I'm all set.
Okay, good. Lynn?
No, nothing more to add. I think Tony and Nan have voiced concerns with Pettingill Road, and
I
that's
think
my main concern.
they've hit the nail on the head for the board, so.
Very hard.
Okay, Jake?
Mr. Chair, I'm good. I think it's a great use for the area. I'm confident that you guys will work with staff and all traffic issues will be addressed, but I think this is great for the area.
Hey, Ted?
Are you expecting as many workers as you have for spaces that are designed for parking?
The spaces are usually
Dictated by code.
adjusted for shift overlap, so they're maybe more spaces than actual employees to account for that shift over there. But roughly speaking, there's 150 to 200 employees.
Okay.
in all shifts.
And I guess, I just gotta say, if you're looking for other images, probably, their website actually has. under
This is
the-
Roundstone, right?
That's actually the Roundstone site, but the
Good
architecture.
idea what it looks like.
This is the general theme.
It's intended to be represented.
On Lansing Melbourne's website, you can actually see some of the pre-developed architectural pictures that they have.
Thank you for looking. You and my mother look at the website. That's bad. Our traffic is pretty low.
It's on mine too.
Oh, gosh. Wow. You
Very
guys are going to
curious.
double my traffic.
You're welcome. And I just gotta say, as the town councilor on the board, thank you for choosing Londonderry as a potential development site. That's nice. Good economic development for the region and for employment. Thank you.
Great.
Bruce?
So I'll keep my comments to the use, right? Because I think that's what you're looking for. And I'll let the engineers study the traffic and the semis to nauseam. And I'm certain that we'll have a very detailed traffic study on what is or is not going to happen with cars and trucks. But my comments about the project itself is that I think that this is a perfect fit for this area, and I think it's exactly what, the town forefathers thought about when the Pettingill Road project was kind of conceived. This kind of industrial type of usage, which is fairly low impact on town services, but a high impact on town valuation. So, I think that it's, like you said, it's a good use for the space, it's good, fit for the area, right? Because it's in line with what is kind of being developed in that, aspect. And in my experience, usually tractor-trailer drivers and drivers that do it for a living are far superior to the people that are just given licenses in a general state. So they're usually the safest types of drivers. And in addition to that, for them to also be doing it in off-peak times, so when we're sleeping, they're moving our products. So I think it's exactly what that area needs, and will help to further diversify the tax base in that area for the vacant land. So again, thank you for bringing this type of a project.
If I can address that specifically, we didn't really mention it as part of Bob's presentation, but between our work on the New Balance site and these two sites, you can assume this represents about a $170 million investment for us. So you can do the math in your head on tax base and what they might do for the town. I hope to God you don't have a revenue cap like Manchester does, but, so that you can put the money to good work. But we certainly are looking for more. We're not stopping there. We're assuming we're going to make about $400 million in investments in the Merrimack River Valley one way or another before next year is out. And we love this kind of use. I mean, it's great stuff, and it feels good bringing jobs to people.
Yeah, and from my perspective, both as a resident, but also as a town employee and a shift commander for the fire department, these types of buildings are, they're high valuation, but they're usually low risk because of all the engineered systems like you discussed, fire alarms and sprinkler systems and deluge systems, because like you said, the value is inside the building, not the building itself.
Yeah, this sprinkler system will add in a building this size, $5 to $6 million more than a regular sprinkler system, just to be able to put fires out in the racks themselves.
Yep. And so these buildings are usually low impact for us, low medical calls and usually fire alarms and stuff that are non-dramatic in nature. But I think that they bring a high valuation to the town, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks. Jenny?
Well,
Jake, is this what it's like being at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
you
tough
have
over there, isn't it? Nothing to say.
You always.
I have
Always
more
find
like-
something, though.
I have-
Always.
I have like more comments, like, which forefathers, the one in the 1700s?
Yeah,
or,
probably.
okay. I don't think they envisioned it. So I just wanted,
Forefathers that came before us.
okay. So it's the entrance to the Gateway Park, so, dress it up. It's a great use, be a great contribution to our tax base. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I think we're gonna wanna see like elevations and landscaping plans, and that whole area is like sand, so make sure the trees live if we're putting it in, and dress it up a little bit, because that's where everybody's gonna be pulling into, when they're off of Raymond Resort Drive.
I'm not saying that name out loud until I practice it in the mirror. at
Yeah,
home.
I'm still trying to figure out how to say it between everything I've heard tonight, so.
My father-in-law was Polish,
I
too,
just
so
want to
that's
tell you.
WD.
I want to tell you it's spelled wrong on your plan. Yeah, Chudik
Nice,
is
Bob.
spelled
No
wrong.
elevations and wrong spelling. I'm writing all this down.
You're getting hammered tonight, huh, Bob?
I know.
He's gonna be crediting me on the bill, too.
We know him well.
Especially the Poundstone one, that's really butchered.
Poundstone.
That's really butchered.
I keep calling it Roundtree, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that one's okay.
You get the round part right, so, but, yes, thank you very much for considering Londonderry, and we appreciate it. And I'm sure it's gonna be a very, very fine facility.
Hopefully next time we won't have red buildings on the, that's the most offensive color.
You make it look like a barn, huh?
Let's try to make them, white or something.
Yeah, and actually, warehouses of commercial industrial property have the least tax impact, the tax positive. And
They
especially
certainly are.
compared to any residential property, we always want commercial and industrial. It's really, what we have so far is definitely helping our tax base. But I think there was a study commission, but I think it was actually the Cape Cod Commission that looked at the tax positivity and tax negativity of industrial buildings and determined that warehousing is the least impact.
Is the least, exactly. Right. And, I think the board has given us many constructive criticisms that we'll take to heart, far more constructive than my partner's criticism. And we will,
Okay,
we
we'll
will,
do,
We have another building to go, 2 buildings.
we'll do part 2 now, which is a conceptual site plan discussion for 2 high-cube warehouses sized 114,400 square feet and 104,500 square feet at 60 Pettingill Road, tax map 14, lot 49-2. Pepperidge Holdings LLC is the owner, and Lansing Melbourne Group LMG is the applicant. So we'll do the same thing we did before.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, I think you misspoke on the address. This is not 60 Pettingill.
Yeah,
one
this should be
is,
Roundstone.
yeah, the
Oh.
round part of
the
the-
agenda
Okay,
says
I'm reading
61.
I'm reading what's written here, so,
Yeah.
pardon me.
This is actually 6 and 8 Brownstone, but
Okay.
the applicant is the same. I think it was just a copy over.
Yeah, it's just the,
So for the record,
Can I
it's,
do this presentation? It's 2 buildings. They're not going to be red. There's not a lot of traffic, and it's pretty much like the other one. So can we go to questions? Go ahead, Bob.
I think you covered the presentation.
I looked at your notes.
Is your intention for the same type of client in all 3 buildings?
Yeah, if I may, because I think the rest of it, since it's conceptual, isn't that important tonight. But this may be buildings that we subdivide. As an example, the one on the right, we're already in discussions with Home Depot about a last mile building for white goods, primarily dishwashers, refrigerators, and things that you hate when they break, and you want to make sure, to your point from before, you want to call at 7 at night, and you want to know the next morning they're coming. They're right now doing that. They're serving the state line up to Concord from a facility in Massachusetts. And so they're frantically searching up and down the Everett Turnpike for a location. We've talked to them a couple of times. We're in their site evaluation process. We don't have a deal. I'm not saying this is the Home Depot building, but that's the kind of user we see coming over here. It's a little easier in these buildings just because of the ratio of width to length to divide them up for multiple tenants. The way Bob's done the building on the right, you can have loading or direct drive into the building on the end as well as in the back. And that makes it really attractive for somebody like Home Depot, where you're coming in with big tractor trailers for inbound and single units on outbound. Those guys are on the road by 6:15 to 6:30 in the morning. The trucks are coming in at, 8 at night to bring in goods. So it's completely, you wouldn't know anybody worked there during the day. The parking lot is full of the cars that belong to the guys who drive the single units. So that's the kind of users we're looking for here. We've chased, again, 1,000 questions about where the driveway is, but we basically chased it as far down the hill as we could until we got to the end of the property. So the seller's retaining that little out parcel there. I understand we have some kind of NASA sewer line going through, chilled water line going through this thing that we're going to have to deal with to change the grade of. And there is a public way in the front of the buildings that we haven't figured out yet. I don't know if there's an opinion, John or Kelly, on whether we're abandoning that right away or keeping it, or.
No opinion at this time.
Doesn't matter to us one way or the other, but it is a public right of way, and you should be aware that we're going to be coming in and talking about it.
It's,
like that?
It was good, Peter. Good. They would,
I used to be an engineer.
Used to be?
My mom still said that.
what Peter was talking about is Old Pettingill Road, which if you look at the plan, you can see there's a Class 6 road that runs in front of the buildings from west to east. And it's discontinued on the Manchester side, and of course, it's been interrupted by Ray Wazorek, so there's really no use for it as a public road to continue for this site or for any other site for that
Was that
matter.
ever discontinued, the Class 6?
That portion was not discontinued, my understanding, because that's where, as Peter had alluded to, that's where the AES cooling water line is.
Yes.
That's where it is. So that's something that, as Peter says, it's something that, a hurdle.
We have to deal
It's in the
with.
wrong grade.
Right.
Yeah.
What's underground? The cooling-
Yes, it is.
cooling line's underground?
Yeah, it's a 16-inch iron pipe that carries cooling water to the Granite Ridge plant and back to.
Can we apologize now that we have to turn the power off to the city for a couple of days to move that? I'm sorry.
Town, yeah.
Please, I'll go on vacation next July.
And the relocation, I mean, it's going to stay in place. And the old Pettingill Road actually is also coincident with an easement in favor of AES to keep and maintain and repair that line. So that's staying. However, and we're keeping our parking spaces out of that road. And the reason that it has to be touched at all is that when the state came through and put in Ray Wazorek, they lowered the grade there about 30 feet. So they lowered the line down with it and then carried it across Ray Wazorek at that lower grade and brought it back up to match the ground. And then, it falls from east to west as you move across the buildings. That's why there's so much cut on this site, is because the ground on the right-hand side is about 220 feet elevation. The ground on the left-hand side is about 150 feet elevation. So there's 70 or 80 feet of cut to fill. We're going to make that whole site approximately, as high as we can, but there's necessarily going to be a substantial amount of earth that wants to move, and across the street is that long, low slope that's actually below Ray Wazorek Drive that needs fill for construction. So that's why the symbiosis of these two projects is so important. And that's what has to be done. Just where DOT left the pipe down low, we're going to be low on the other side. We're just going to relocate downward that cooling line where it was left high by DOT. So easy to say, not so easy to do. But that, I think we've already talked about, all of the elements. They're comparable to this facility. This is 220,000 odd square feet as opposed to 175,000. So the traffic is slightly more, but again, we're talking about a couple dozen trips during the peak hours. A handful of trucks during peak hours, most of the traffic off-peak. And it's been pointed out several times by many board members, there's probably no better value to traffic and sewer and water impacts of a use available. So, again, this is a great use for this particular site.
I just wanted to mention that in terms of abutters, we have met with the property owner to the west that abuts us immediately, would be the most impacted. And he's indicated they had no objection. Obviously, we're not speaking for him, but just to report what we heard at the meeting. Sorry.
Yes. And the other abutters, like the other site, the state is 3 of the other abutters that in this particular instance. So we've talked to the one abutter who would be, private abutter who would be affected by this, and he's expressed his acquiescence or support for this project.
Support's a better word than acquiescence.
Well, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was supportive.
So, phone number of any engineers in the city?
It's like Heckle and Jekyll.
Who's on first?
Peter's one of my favorite clients.
Your only clients.
Not after tonight.
And another point too, that should be brought out is that the location of the driveway is actually a deeded location that was agreed to by the DOT at the time Roundstone was constructed. And originally it was a little bit farther east, but in the deed, they allowed the landowner, which was the King Family Trust, to relocate that driveway, to its current location if the abutter, if the landowner chose to do so. And of course, that's a better location. It's farther from the intersection. All the issues of queuing and so forth are reduced at that intersection. But that is the required location of the driveway for this site. One other thing, this site also has some wetlands in it of similar size. Again, they're gravel pit, essentially dredge ponds, low value. We'll be having a pre-application meeting with DES here shortly, and that wetland will be filled. In the back, we're staying out of the 250-foot shoreline setback from Little Cohas Brook, but there's a little bit of a rill, really. It's not a stream. It's really just an area where stormwater has eroded a little gully. That upper piece of wetland that's in the gravel pit worked area, but not in the wooded area, is also a small impact, 400-odd square foot impact. That will be part of the wetland fill application we'll be seeking from DES. But all of the sensitive areas to the north, adjacent to Little Cohas Brook, will be left alone, outside of the 250-foot buffer. So, are there any other questions that, or information the board would like to see? You've actually seen the colored elevation which was sent around that was for the building A, the right-hand side building, but it's representative of all buildings.
Yeah, we'll touch on with staff and then the board. John?
Yeah, a couple of things that I had made note of, and Peter made the board aware regarding the cooling water line, so we know that. I'm glad to hear that Peter's approached the abutter to the west, because obviously, again, with the potential of 24/7, it's going to be, could be a problematic. As far as your utilities, Bob, in your narrative, you say that those are available at the intersection. That was going to be part of the car wash. Those were never constructed.
Right, yes, thank you, John. Skipped over utilities. They'll be brought up according to that plan.
Yeah.
That was approved at the time of
The
the
narrative
car wash.
indicates it was, they're there, they're not there.
They're not there yet,
Yeah.
right. And
And then like,
have the plan.
yeah, like, again, getting back to the traffic, again, this is one of the sites that we were made aware of in our, looking at our Pettingill Road corridor study. So that's on our radar as well. Again, the concern again would be, again, the the entrance and then that truck having to cross basically 5 lanes of traffic.
Yeah.
If he's going back to the Everett Turnpike, he's gonna be crossing 5 lanes of traffic at a 5% grade, basically, if you're familiar with Brownstone and where that is. And then at times, I know we've looked at it, and it's part of our study, is again, the slip lane, when you're heading from from Brownstone going back to F.E. Everett Turnpike, that slip lane, it can be problematic. So, again, it's all things that are on our radar. So,
John, is that a grade issue or raised?
the stacking, again, it backs up, so.
Yeah, because there's a gas station down there to the west of this property.
Correct, it
And
it doesn't back up that far, Ian, but.
I know,
it's-
but it generates a lot of traffic.
Correct.
Because when people are leaving Pettingill or like us who are leaving Londonderry, need some gas, stop there and then get on the highway.
That's all I have.
Okay, good. Anything, Kelly?
Just to echo what's been said, the town continues to work with applicants and our consultant on a comprehensive traffic study for this area. Preliminarily, the site design shows compliance with our zoning ordinance and our site plan regulations, parking, landscaping, et cetera. So we're looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Good. I'll do the other end now. Johnny, you get your.
First. And I don't really have much to say, except for it's a good use for the property, work with staff. Sounds like there's some concerns with the overall, flow of the traffic. Again, it's at the entrance, so the presentation of the buildings and the landscape and everything, how it fits into the whole entrance there, entrance to the airport area. So, but good use. All I got.
Well, looks good. Thank you for the entertaining presentation.
It's one of the better ones we've had.
Yeah, I liked it.
Depends on your
Come back
perspective.
soon. Ted?
Again, thank you for choosing Londonderry in the site for economic output for the town and the region. And again, on Bruce's note, it's always good to bring some entertainment to the crowd, as these meetings can get a little boring sometimes. Thank you.
There is nothing boring about these meetings.
It depends on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets a little lively.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair. I don't need to re-echo the comments. that were-
Okay, good. Lynn?
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Jeff?
I'm all set.
Okay.
So the lot line to the left, as I'm looking at it, all, that neighborhood is Manchester,
Yes,
is that correct?
that is the city of
And the
town.
bottom of Roundstone is Manchester.
Yes.
So, does Manchester people get noticed?
Regional
So
impact.
this will go through the same regional impact analysis as the New Balance site.
Okay.
So they also, as direct abutters, receive notice.
So they will be at the meetings and will be.
Be invited.
They'll be notified
Got it.
legally and be invited.
Thank you.
Yep, they're official abutter, so it's
Thank you.
all set. Yeah.
Me? Do the trucks fuel up on your property?
We're not a gas station.
Next door is, so, right? Okay,
Over here, yeah,
that makes it
yes,
easy. Okay. What do you think the elevation will be, final elevation for the buildings?
When will they be ready? Is that the question?
The finished floor?
The parking lot, say.
I mean, the ground, yeah, it's, the memory was 195, more or less.
So you're not taking that much off. It's when you're starting at 220, one point down to 150.
I'd like that to be his answer too.
Wait a minute, I've got it.
I know.
I'm sorry, 169.5.
What?
169.5.
169? Okay.
Yeah,
It's
169.
not a lot.
It's a lot of grade to come off.
If there's a God, it will balance out with what we need on the other side.
Yeah, I'm also glad that there's a conservation easement on the back end of it, and it's from a note from the Airport Access Road Mitigation Area. And you have the state of New Hampshire as your neighbor to the east, so
Yes.
they'll watch over you back there. I'm concerned with Little Cohas Brook going through there, but I know you'll take good care of it.
As are we.
Yes, absolutely. All of the drainage will be away from that towards the south.
Then I'm all set.
And another welcome addition, so thank you, gentlemen, for a great presentation. And any questions of us that is in your minds?
We thank you for a fun hearing too, and I've said on your side, I appreciate the fact that you're all volunteering your time and putting the citizens' interest first, so we'll try to respect that and give you the best product we can give you.
The only thing I add is, well, our staff is very able, they will help you out. Have to meet with the Heritage Commission for buildings design, landscaping, and that type of stuff, sure, Conservation Commission. We're already working with the abutters, which I always, advise, strongly work with the abutters, and especially with staff. They're very helpful to us, they're very capable, so. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much for your help.
Okay, next we have is a conceptual site plan discussion for a proposed 67-unit multifamily residential project at 50 to 52 Gilchrist Road, tax map 7, lots 74, 75. Ann M. Perry Trust is the owner, and Gen X Construction Group is the applicant. And you'll need to identify yourselves for our records, please, and we'll proceed. Conceptual discussion is just a discussion, there's no decisions made, it's a good flow of ideas back and forth.
Good evening, my name is Tony Marcotte. I'm here on behalf of Gen X Construction Group, which would be the owner, developer, contractor, and manage this property. So all these people that will work at these warehouses need a place to live, and would like to provide them some nice townhomes on Gilchrist Road. The screen up there is black, but I don't know that I'll need to point to very much. We're proposing,
Jake broke it.
This is the,
Bruce fixed it.
I think he's shutting it.
Just give it a second.
we have to-
Don't
Give it a minute.
there,
thank you.
Slow.
So we're proposing 67 two-story townhome units. They'll all be two-bedroom units with ample parking. The town requires 2 parking spaces per unit, and we provide 142, which is 8 extra. The zoning is C1, and it was a little tricky going through, but when I met with staff, they agreed that had kind of looked at everything. The restriction for the number of units per building is 16, which was in the AR3 zoning. That's a footnote in the use table, so that's why 3 16-unit buildings are proposed, and that would be the first phase, because we're allowed 48 units per year under the zoning, and then the 19 units to the left would be a phase 2. We met with the fire department, or I did, and one modification to the concept was to increase the turning radiuses on some of those islands. So we can, it's designed to get a ladder truck all the way around those buildings. And for the 19 units, I provided a spaces at the end of the parking lot for people to turn around. There's ample space for an ambulance to turn around. That's that hashed section all the way to the left. And they did ask us to approach Hannaford for a gated emergency egress. They didn't say it was required, but they did ask us to at least approach them to see if they would allow it. The wetlands shown on the plan are actually as located. There are no wetlands at the top of the property, so there's no wetland impact, no wetland buffer impact that I anticipate. The only modification to that would be site-specific is a lot different than when I did it 17 years ago, which was the last time I was before this board. But, so there may be a small wetland buffer impact for detention ponds. This developer is mainly residential developer. These units will be 1,600 to 1,800 per month. That's kind of the goal. It'll be granite countertops, nice finishes, but it won't be unaffordable. A family of two certainly could afford to live, looking at rents in the area that are exceeding that, and houses that, at least for $3,000, we feel that there'll be a market for this. And this developer plans on maintaining it themselves. They're out of Hudson, it's close to home. They currently own and manage over 600 units. And some are duplexes, some are 150-unit buildings, mill buildings that are renovated, and so they take a lot of pride in maintaining their properties, and this being close to home, certainly everybody would see it. I don't have an elevation view, but the intent is to have a small vestibule entrance for each unit, so you would step up a few steps, have a 4-foot landing, so that anybody coming could get out of the weather, or could have packages delivered. So the access will be off the sidewalk, directly off the sidewalk in front of the buildings, but there'll be a small vestibule that you don't have to stand in the middle of the sidewalk waiting to get into a unit if you're unlocking the door or putting down packages, or whatever. So that's what is anticipated. There are 20 by 40 units, so approximately 1,600 square feet with 2 stories. They'll have a sloped roof, gutters, we plan on stepping the units down about every 6 units for drainage, step it in about 6 inches down, so there'll be a break. There'll be earth tone colors. We can change the colors as often as when working with the Heritage Commission if they want. We anticipate every 6 units, but, we can do anything. We would use hardy plank, which is a concrete material, much more, lasts a lot longer. The new composite materials are better than what AZEK uses. I don't want to get too technical, but sometimes you see some of the older buildings, the trim kind of shrinks, and so it'll be all commercial grade finishes, so that if somebody hits up against the building, it's not going to be vinyl. So it'll have a look of clapboard, but it'll be commercial grade finishes. Currently, there's a restaurant that is vacant, and that building would be torn down. They've taken everything out, and it's in disrepair, so that would be removed. There's currently 2 active driveways, one for the restaurant, one for the lower section. Then there's a 3rd driveway that just goes up into the fence. On the fence issue, I'm not sure if this board would comment on it, but at the edge of the landscape buffer, the 30-foot landscape buffer, we would anticipate a stockade fence, whether they prefer wood, white, just to kind of shield the development from Gilcrest Road. And so if somebody was out sitting behind their unit, they wouldn't, they wouldn't be disturbed by Gilcrest Road, but the appearance from Gilcrest Road would be a little bit better. They would just see the home. So it would be anticipated that for a majority of the frontage, we would put a fence along right at the landscape buffer, so it'd be landscaping and then the fence, and then behind it would be common area use for the residents. I kind of labeled different areas, that 30-foot area behind the units, there may be a small patio area for each unit, but you could have horseshoes, shuffleboard, certainly not volleyball along Gilcrest Road, but there's plenty of area, plenty of green space. As you can see, the plan's pretty green for recreational use. We would not propose a sidewalk along Gilcrest Road. It would lead to nowhere. We will have a lot of internal sidewalks so that people can move in and about the site. For traffic, residential typically is about 4 vehicle trips per day and about 1 trip per on the peak hour. So we would anticipate about 1 car per minute during the peak hour and a total of about 260 cars per day. We know that Gilcrest is fairly busy. And it wouldn't seem like it, but if you type in directions from Hudson to get on the other side of Derry, people come down Gilcrest and then cut underneath the highway and get around. So we would anticipate that would help. Once exit 4A is in, there would be less people trying to use Gilcrest to get around to Derry. But anyway, the single driveway seems to make sense, and working with the fire department, the fire prevention officer, there were no issues with that. There is plenty of sight distance in both directions. There is a small hump on Gilcrest Road, but the cars coming from the east would be looking at, the property would be, if anything would have to be lowered for sight distance, it could be done on the property. I think that's generally what I'd like to tell you. But I would like to stress that it's important, I think, that the developer, the person that will be building it will be maintaining it. So, everything, we feel that we build it, it's easy to maintain, and it'll be a very attractive site that is well-kept and not a slumlord site. And there'll be, there's lots of other projects we could take pictures to the board to show that this is a very responsible developer, and this will be a nice addition to Londonderry. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We'll go to staff and then the board. John?
Yeah, again, you see it, again, Kelly and I had an initial meeting with Tony, reviewed this, and again, Tony has done some tweaks to it, so in terms of, going forward, again, we will work with Tony, and as far as the sanitary sewer capabilities, the access, the connection point, if any studies need to be done on the existing system out there, we'll work with them on the drainage. One thing, again, the board really needs to be aware of, again, I wasn't here last month, but traffic is going to be a big issue between this and what was presented to you a couple weeks ago. And I don't know what the final number was that they presented to you. But again, the board has the ability, again, if you read our regulations, there's a short analysis that kind of says, this is what we're doing, everything's hunky-dory. If it's 6 units or something like that, between this and what's being presented across the street, I think, again, it would be good if the board were to kind of give Tony some direction now, and maybe they'd work together in harmony to look at the traffic. Because, again, just the way that it would operate, it always comes down to who came in the door first. And whoever presents their formal application first, we're going to say, well, there's other development happening in town, so you need to work, you need to put your numbers into their numbers, and vice versa, you know, you're coming into town, well, this is what's coming into town too, so that's how we look at traffic. And again, try to make sure that everything's inclusive.
Yeah, I think that makes very good common sense, is that they have to work together.
It certainly does to me, but to some other people it doesn't at times, Art, so it is what it is.
Yep,
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So multifamily is permitted in the C1 zone by conditional use permit, so that will be a process the applicant needs to go through. As was already highlighted, there's a 50-foot buffer requirement because this is a commercial zoning zone, even though the use is multifamily residential. It abuts the AR1 district. There is a 50-foot wetland buffer on the site as well. And just to reiterate, although we can't formally require that two private property owners and developers work together with regard to traffic, we would strongly recommend that the two projects that we're aware of at this time in this area have a scoping meeting with staff so that we can all be on the same page in terms of expectations and potential mitigation measures that will need to be made to Gilcrest Road.
Kelly, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said 50-foot buffer?
That's correct on,
On which side? Because I only see like a.
just
the right-
as it's shown on
On
the
the
plan.
right-hand side, there is a 50-foot buffer.
On the residential side.
So, yeah, because of AR1.
Got it.
Okay, we'll do the board. I'm going to do a little bit different. We'll start in the middle.
Giving me something to talk about tonight.
You get a chance to go first now.
Don't take mine.
We'll do this side and then this side.
I would have to echo both what John and Kelly said. You know, I do think a big concern here would be traffic. This is what, 67 units? 48 units, 67 units in
67.
total.
Yeah.
And I think we're just under 100 right across the street. So together, that's a pretty big impact. I would expect that there would be a full traffic study done to see what the impact of both these developments together really is, because while they may be being presented separately, they're certainly gonna both share quite a large impact over there. So I would have to agree with the both of them on that.
Yep. Ted?
I may have missed this comment, but will there be a well or will it be connecting into a water
I
line?
didn't mention it. It is public water and sewer.
Okay.
And John had mentioned that there's a spot in the sewer that is kind of flat. So the advantage of working with directly for this company, today I'm sitting here with a button-down shirt, but I was out in the street flipping the manholes, and we will tie in one manhole away from the manhole that's an issue. There's a sewer that comes down adjacent to the Hannaford driveway. It doesn't serve Hannaford, it serves businesses beside that, and where that comes in to the sewer flowing down Gilcrest Road, they installed that manhole, and there's very little pitch between that manhole and the next one. So the water was flowing slow, so we would tie in one down, and when they flipped the manhole, the water was zipping by. So it made sense, the numbers added up, that the flat spot is away from where we're gonna tie in. We're gonna tie in beyond that, so we won't contribute more to the issue that is upstream of us.
Thank you. And I see there's two areas that you mentioned for recreational use. Are there any ideas or plans for those areas?
It would just be outdoor recreation, so.
Pickleball.
Thank you, Tony.
No tennis courts.
No,
or
like
pool.
playgrounds or anything like that, or?
We don't anticipate a large amount of children in a two-bedroom unit.
And they happen, though. but
Yeah, so that's
eventually.
something we could view if the board, that, they're very flexible. If the board would say, hey, we think it makes sense to put a play area, so we're flexible in that manner. They're very easy to work with, and, you know, I know the two gentlemen we're going a little bit back and forth, but, you know, I've worked for or with this developer for 20 years as their engineer and now as an employee engineer. So they're very flexible on providing what the Heritage Commission staff, planning board, amending to what you feel is best. So we've kind of left it open to what, the town would like to see or typically see, but no swimming pools, no tennis courts.
No, of course not. I just envisioned
Yep.
67 units and, you have a couple with one child, that's 67 kids that may want an area to go play and.
Yeah, so I would
just
anticipate the
envisioning an
one
area.
in the upper right-hand corner, that would make kind of a lot of sense. Being furthest away from the roads, so if a ball goes rolling, they're not chasing it.
Of course.
To the road, even though we are proposing a fence, that's where I would anticipate it. And then on the upper portion where I say that's recreation area, I anticipate it, but, I haven't done the storm. I've graded the site, I've looked at the sewer, I've done everything except stormwater detention ponds. So we could do something in there. And then maybe if we'd have to work with the post office, there may be a mail delivery spot, we're not sure, but where each unit has a vestibule, they can drop a package, so I call it a vestibule because there'll be probably about 8 or 10 feet before you actually get to the door, so packages could be dropped, but every post office is different, so we'll create.
And I will say, I like that certainly the units on the right-hand side of your map here, there's a nice loop around for delivery vehicles or if the fire or ambulances ever need to get in
Yeah,
there.
that 28 was the inside radius of their fire trucks, that's why I picked that number. So, yep.
Wonderful. Bruce?
You're on, Bruce.
So, I'm just, because it's design and we're speaking, kind of about conceptual. It may be, I don't even know if it's possible, but it may be prudent to go onto the private drive of Hannaford's if you can get that worked out, because my concern is your residents are gonna have a hard time getting onto Gilcrest. And I'm not even talking about traffic studies, I'm just thinking logically, you've got working your way down Gilcrest, Fort of Londonderry is a pain to get in and out of that. You've got the other side, Home Depot's a pain to get in and out of on Gilcrest. There's another project that we saw that's on the opposite side of the road. So your project may actually behoove you to put your traffic out onto a private drive, which may be, conducive to a positive, situation for your developer. I don't know if it's possible, but it's certainly something that if I was you, I would explore, because you're gonna be way better suited to put your traffic out onto Hannaford's private drive and share that drive with them than you are gonna be to try to put it on Gilcrest.
We certainly will have that conversation with them. Sometimes, another site that they're doing in Hudson, it's near Walmart, and there's actually a stub right to the property, but when the property was subdivided, they didn't nobody signed the easements. Now they won't let us use their driveway, but we maybe Hannaford, this.
And I mean, I'm a town employee, and I always thought that the cul-de-sac behind Hannaford's was Hampton Drive, but as I'm looking at our GIS, it's not, it's a private drive.
Yeah, it's a cul-de-sac to wetlands.
It's a cul-de-sac to nowhere, and I'm assuming it must have some public utilities reason, because there's a fire hydrant down there, but
There used to be a pond on that property.
down back there.
Yeah, because
still
Palmer's
there, you
Riding
just-
Camp was on one side of 102, and the swimming hole, or the swimming area, was on that side.
I wouldn't
down
swim in there
there.
today.
I know, because my cousin was the swimming instructor and lifeguard there.
My son is in my town.
But I mean, that drive, that we're talking about, it doesn't go anywhere, right? So it's not gonna
Right.
have any impact to Hannaford. And
Well, we can't get to that backside.
It's wetlands.
We'd have to cross the wetlands. The only way we could attach would be to that existing drive to the right, because it's all wetlands behind, so we can't get to that cul-de-sac. So if we attach.
Oh, no, I'm not saying get into the cul-de-sac. I'm saying it goes Hampton, or I guess it's Hannaford's Drive, right? And then you have a right-hand turn
Oh, I
to go
get you.
down, yeah. So
That's what you
basically,
see.
if you could enter here, that doesn't go anywhere. That goes to a cul-de-sac of nothing, and it's not direct access onto Gilcrest Road. So again, I don't know what the impacts is, but I don't even know how you would do a traffic study onto a private driveway. But your route of entry would be, you would be able to diversify your traffic to Route 102 and to Gilcrest Road, because you're gonna have access to 102 through Hampton Drive,
Yep.
and you're gonna have access to Gilcrest Road from the private drive.
Anybody going on the highway is gonna take.
So I'm just saying, that's gonna be a way better point of entry, and it's gonna be way more advantageous from a selling standpoint for your renters than to try to put yourself
And
onto.
probably everybody's gonna shop at Hannaford, so maybe they'll like it.
Well, they can go right across the street and they can walk to Hannaford's.
Yeah, but,
And
what I'm
Hannaford's has to go, so you can literally bring your wagon down to the to-go section and wagon it all back. You don't even have to enter the store.
We'll have that discussion with them.
It's just a thought. I mean, that's what I think these conceptual plans are for.
Yep.
I, for one, am gonna tell you that Gilcrest section of Gilcrest Road between Albany, Boston, Charleston, you got Home Depot, Fort of Londonderry, Hannaford's. I mean, you put your life on the line trying to get out of Hannaford's at 3:30 in the afternoon on trying to take a left-hand turn to go towards Derry. So if you can put all your traffic onto a private drive and you can have a collaboration with Hannaford's, it's a win-win for you guys, in my opinion. As far as the project goes, I think that this type of project, I've said this for the last one that we saw, this price point and this type of community is what we need in order to support the manufacturing and industrial that we're trying to drive town to have that valuation decrease or increase for tax stabilization purposes. And I think that for people who are starting out and wanna, who grew up in Londonderry and they get their first job or they get their, their entry-level job, you can't afford to live in Londonderry because, you're spending $3,000 a month on a rent or, $4,000 a month on a mortgage. So I think that this type of project is desperately needed. And it's not your cookie cutter apartment buildings, it's nice townhouses, so, those are my comments.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks.
Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally, when we see conceptuals, we see them at all different levels. Some come with a little bit more engineering, and you see where the water's being detained, and you see where the snow storage is, and you see elevations, and you see things like that, and so I don't know necessarily I can comment on any of that. So I know that's gonna be a factor, how the project looks and how does the overall project sit on the lot and how do all those other things interconnect. I'm gonna just say that you probably should work, sounds like traffic's gonna be an issue for you, so you're gonna have to address that at some point, whether you work with the other project going on, or address it on your own, I don't know. I guess I got a question for staff. I mean, can you dump all this traffic out onto a private drive?
If they have permission to do it.
Okay, so there's no,
And then we'll have to look at, so then, what other intersections do we look at? If I were to look at this right now, I'd say, you're gonna look at Gilcrest and 102, you're gonna look at Gilcrest and South Road, then I'll have to kind of look at the map and think about it a little further, as we get further and further apart.
yeah.
Because I can't take into account the guy that's gonna use the McDonald's shortcut, or the guy that's gonna use the Hannaford shortcut.
But you're definitely gonna diversify your intersection approaches by going to the private drive.
Yeah.
Right,
The
but he
first
doesn't have any
driveway is 50
frontage
right,
on
50 left.
Any of those, he doesn't have any frontage, any of those driveways, so I guess something to explore, but certainly can't force him to go that route if he can't work something out,
Right.
so.
Yep.
What are those little lines, like you get like little cubes of green and then a little line that goes in front, is that intended to be like a sidewalk? or-
Sidewalk, yeah.
And, so, anyhow, I mean, I think that there's a need for this type of product and, sorry I couldn't be more helpful in my comments, but, it's a pretty basic layout.
Yeah, well, what we've done with the owner is asked for, we have a 90-day due diligence, so part of it was coming to this board. We know trying to get an architect to give me an elevation plan in less than 60 days just doesn't happen. And we did do cookie cutter apartment buildings and came up to this. So moving forward, we'll present, elevation views, but it's a builder and, there'll be a very nice product. So I'm
Sure they'll want
very,
to protect his investment, yeah.
I'm very confident we'll work with the Heritage Commission on the look of this to make it something very attractive. And engineering-wise, I made sure the water, sewer elevation, the stormwater, although the ponds aren't shown on there, that's not shown on there, but like I said, I flipped the sewer manholes so to make sure that this actually did work. And take John's comment into account to make sure I wasn't putting the sewer and creating a problem. So we're trying to get all the check boxes for the due diligence, and then we'll work with Bedford Design, my former employer a lot of years ago, who has done a lot of work here, and we'll move forward with a site plan. Essentially, after this meeting, I'll speak with the owners, and then we'll get going on the survey and hire an architect and everything. But having done multifamily their whole life, and that's what they do, I'm very confident you'll like the product that you see.
Right, great, thank you.
That's it.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to echo everybody else's comments on the traffic. When I first saw the plan, I said that's not going to work. That whole area's just got lots of issues. So, I mean, with the two developments we've been looking at. So I'll leave that at that. My next thought was, and it might play in with what Bruce is talking about, is I'd put a walkway in or try to find out how to put a walkway to Hannaford in, because I'd be very upset if I wanted a loaf of bread that I'd have to hop in my car basically and drive over
Yeah.
to the store. I think that people are just going to walk over there anyway, so if you could, give some type of permanent access, I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
And, you talk about the developer, with other developments or other multifamily developments in town. Is there anything similar to this in Hudson that they've done that we could go take a look at?
They haven't done this large of townhomes, but they've done the old Batesville Casket Company in Nashua. That was transformed into 140 elderly residential units and a restaurant that's now vacant. But that's a project that would show their ability, and they have multiple duplexes throughout town. There's typically the father of the family did larger multifamily buildings. So there's projects we could show. There's Fitchburg. We bought the former Keene Middle School and built a 140-unit, 4-story residential structure behind that. And I can show you pictures of that. It's well-maintained, so.
So just from a personal perspective, I enjoyed driving and looking at other developments that have.
Yes, I can give you addresses
Yeah,
of
if you
them.
could get
Yeah.
those to Kelly, and she could get, something like that out to us, and,
Yeah.
when we're in that area, we could just take a drive through and see what type of projects, they've already accomplished. It
Yep.
just gives me a better understanding of what the finished product is gonna
Yeah,
look like.
MDPdevelopment.com has.
What is it?
MDP, the 3 letters on the plan, development.com.
Okay.
Has pictures of sites, and it takes you to links of other sites. But I'll give the property addresses to Kelly, and she can forward them over. But we're very proud of what we've done and the finished product. work with. Nashua was very happy because it was a very distressed area, and the
Yeah.
same with Fitchburg. And Keene was happy that we're providing housing, so that's what they do best.
Great, okay, great. That's it for me. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on the traffic, that a commercial use would be worse. So we know there's a lot of traffic, but if this is zone C1, everybody going to the 5 o'clock shopping would be a lot worse. So at least this use is less trips per hour in the peak hour than if it were actually a commercial use. So
Yeah,
it's a little better. I know it's not the best, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying it is better.
Yeah, if it was a commercial development, we'd still be having the same discussion, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to echo, again, the traffic, to Bruce's point there, coming out of the Hannaford's lot on Hampton Drive, there's a lot of, I would pretty much take a white knuckle left turn there because of the Home Depot traffic that's coming down. My acceleration point doesn't really end until past that vacant restaurant, which I think is where you're proposing.
The vacant restaurant is where the 19.
So I'm just
9
saying.
units are. And then
Yeah, so I'm still accelerating to ensure that, I get home.
Yeah, and then so then it comes up to a small, a
Agree,
small
what-
rise.
yes,
That's close to where the driveway will be.
Yes, so the driveway there, I think, is, I'm not gonna, belabor the point anymore, but I think you definitely need to have a scoping conversation with the other development. I think that's a great idea with the town. I think also there's opportunity with Hanford to kind of assist, have that conversation. That road is traveled by a lot of, obviously the cut through to Derry, but also getting into South Londonderry.
Yeah.
So it's used, and it's, not just your typical 8 to 5 or 8 a.m. rush hour type thing. It's also, Saturday mornings, and stuff like that. But I think that's all stuff that, is known. I really want to see, when you come back, I love the development, love the use, but, when you do come back, really want to see some innovative kind of ideas on how we can kind of continue to, develop Gilcrest, but ensure that it's safe for all. So I'm happy the town is, kind of, brought up the concept of a full scoping meeting. I think that, will assist you. And I think, this property here, with having that supermarket there, I think you potentially may have some good opportunities to kind of play.
Place for their workers to live.
Thoughts.
Their workers can live here. That's how we'll sell it.
So, yeah, thank you again for kind of, obviously considering Londonderry here, and thanks, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Tony?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yes, please thank your client for thinking of Londonderry. The entire southern tier needs housing, and this is a great way to do it. We can keep beating the horse, but the only thing I'm going to say about traffic is you and the project across the street have a greater chance for success if you work together.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you want, is success. So
Sure.
that would be my suggestion. I think when it comes to, there was some talk about playgrounds, the developer will decide what the clients may or may not want, and what they're focusing towards. I would say, however, when it comes to kids, that, and I've said this to several other projects as well, I think you should think of some kind of a shelter for the kids while they're waiting for the school bus, because the buses aren't going to come into your project.
Yep.
They're going to be along, the bus is going to be stopping on Gilcrest, which they already do. That's not that big a deal. But if
Yep.
you have a project this big and you have 20 kids or whatever, if there was some kind of a, whatever shed,
Yep.
they could at least get out of the weather
Three-sided
while they're
with the-
waiting, and would offer some protection as well when the snow hits. I think Bruce's comment on the access to that private drive, I think that's brilliant. Whether or not that can be accomplished is whatever. No one has the crystal ball at this point, but I think it's a brilliant idea. And my last thing is that if you haven't, I hope you've started to talk to the abutters already. If you haven't, please do. You have at least 3, maybe 4 direct abutters, backyard to backyard, that you need to have a sit down with those folks and listen and hear what they have to say and
Well,
either appease them or
I
not.
met one of them when my wetland scientist was mapping the wetlands, and she was calling a realtor saying somebody was wandering in the woods, so they're definitely watching.
So again, you're affecting some people's lives here. You have a right to do that. Your client has the right to do that, maybe, on this land. But again, your chances for success is better through communication. And so I would suggest that you do that. So, but again, thank you for thinking of Londonderry.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tony. Ian?
You mentioned something about 1,600 to 1,800 a month.
Yes.
Would that be considered workforce?
This isn't being proposed as an inclusionary housing.
Yeah,
okay.
the difficulty with workforce is you have to do the 60% of the area median income. So to hit that means you gotta catch people that are 40%, and so it really restricts. But Kelly mentioned that you have, so I didn't wanna call it workforce housing, but it does create a much-needed use, and that's what they build for, and that's why there's a waiting list at all of the properties that they own. So, so we build for that price range, but maybe 80% of the median area income people.
Okay.
So it's not meeting the definition of a workforce housing project, however, relatively speaking, it's affordable.
It definitely is. And I understand it's 1,600 square feet
Yeah,
each
800
unit?
square feet per floor, two floors. Some of the units will have basements in the back. We won't do basements along the road so that there won't be, people wouldn't see basement access, but there'll be some basements. And some will have basements, some won't.
And, well, that's a good size, good size building. And I just want to say, I know of this property because as a former president and curator of the Historical Society, I know that the Perry family donated that, which was considered a 1725 colonial salt box to the Historical Society from that property on 50 Gilcrest Road.
Okay, yeah.
So we have thanks to them, but that wasn't during my time with them, but I'm still with them now. But anyways, I thank them.
Working with them so far has been good. And so after this meeting, the decision will be made to move forward, and we'll work on a way to make the traffic work.
Mhm.
That seems to be the issue that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it's, we'll hope to be working with you in the future with that.
Can I ask staff, just?
Certainly.
John, I know you're ready to go home, sorry.
It's all right, 2 hours past my bedtime.
Lights go out shortly, so.
So, what would possible mitigation be for these projects?
We're gonna have to look at it, Tony.
Widen the road,
You got it.
signalization?
Probably, I think, again, widening a road is gonna be one of the things, again, possibility of turn lanes to, again, get them out of the flow of traffic. So people that are heading up from South Road, getting into, getting off the through, I call it the through lane, getting
You could
into
only
a
do
turn lane.
that, you could only do that on the proposed projects lands. You couldn't, unless you're gonna do some taking or eminent domain or
Again,
whatever.
it all depends on how much right-of-way there is out there. So again, Tony, make sure they locate the right-of-way out there.
Yes, that's
All the way
what,
down to Boston or Albany. At
All the way
least.
down to Albany?
Yeah, at least.
Yep.
So that's how they do it, Tony.
Well,
Thank you.
And they say
pending
they-
the meeting, it's Monday, they're gonna start the survey, so I'll have them do it then.
All set, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yeah, definitely a good project. I think we're going to be taking stock of what we have for apartments currently and apartments that are in the pipeline and see what the impact's going to be on our town services, especially police and fire. The other thing is, well, you've heard from everyone, is traffic. That's your big elephant that you got to deal with. And it will behoove you and make it, as Tony said, you're gonna have to work with the abutters. You're gonna have to work with, Hannaford. You're gonna have to work with the, developers across the street from you. Because anything that is gonna be successful is you all working together. So that is probably extremely important, but I cannot emphasize enough is working with the single-family homes on the south side. It's gonna be important. If any of them come in and complain about it, the board's gonna be taking a close look at what they're talking about. And
Yes,
slow
we
you
have that
down.
50-foot buffer, and if they wanted, we could do a stockade
They
fence.
might want a fence there, who,
Yeah.
who knows at this point. And then, the really critical thing is to work with staff.
I was very pleased at my meeting. I was a civil engineer up until 2007 and did work in Londonderry. And I met with John before, and it was nice to know that Kelly is just the same tradition as the past, is reviewing the plan, giving us input, and it was a very helpful meeting. And, it wasn't, sometimes you go in there and it's like, well, here's all the problems. It was a very good meeting, and your staff is very well-versed. And coming back 17 years later, it was a pleasure to know that that's still the case.
I know you look familiar, so.
Yeah, I
I've
was
seen
going
you
to say
before.
that I think of the people up here, you would be one that probably in the past.
You did Freezer Warehouse.
He just called you old.
I am old, so don't.
Convenient cold storage.
I've just been around a long time, so. But also with traffic, you're gonna have to work with the state because it's gonna affect the intersection with Route 102.
Yeah.
It's gonna affect the other end, and I think there's gonna be a lot of involvement dealing with traffic
Yeah,
there.
we're going to hire a traffic engineer that, unfortunately, Steve Perna is retiring, but we'll try to find the second best traffic engineer.
Yeah, that's gonna be critical for you. Any questions of us?
No, I appreciate your time this evening. I know it's late, and taking the time to give us input. And based off your input, I believe the property, my boss is, 3 of them, a family, will move forward with the project and start to get into the design. And as far as Hannaford, we have a little bit of a leg up, because as a contractor, they do some work for them in Maine, so maybe that'll help a little on getting that access, because I think if we can get that access, that takes away a lot. The biggest concern here is if we can get onto that Hanover driveway. I don't know if we can get to the north, but even if we get to where the 19 units are and get onto that part of the driveway, at least that gets people, the option to go 2 different ways. So we will meet with them very early on before we design anything.
Yeah. Besides access to Hannaford, it's a very busy pass-through, too. So. There's a lot, people avoid the light at Gilcrest and.
And go
102.
around it
They
through,
come
so.
around there, so it's busy now, so. But definitely, you're gonna have to work with Hannaford.
What was the purpose for that circle cul-de-sac to nowhere? There's gotta be something there.
There's actually other buildable lots down there.
Okay.
There's a wetland replication area down there, and
Yep.
when I first came to town, that Hampton Drive was all the way down, but it was private, and kids used to go steal and junkies used to go steal the catch basin grates.
So there is a purpose to nowhere.
You got it.
Thank you.
Yes, future planning.
I think it's, but I think it's just become wet over the years.
Absolutely.
Everybody,
Apartment buildings
all the
and so
development drains to there, and even though everybody's got detention ponds, that
still
water
a-
that used to go in the ground lands up. So I think it got flooded over the years, and that's why it's not built. It's
Going to help.
Yep. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Let's see if any other discussion.
There's a motion on the table, Mr. Chair.
Chairman doesn't accept it at the
I
moment.
take back my motion.
Now can we make the motion?
No, so,
Yeah, Lynn wants to talk.
Oh, all right.
so we had a homework assignment
Yep.
for our joint Planning Board Heritage Commission meeting coming up next week, or in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
The 27th.
23rd,
weeks from
27th,
tomorrow.
one of those.
25th.
27th.
Can you refresh, can someone refresh my memory
27th
as
is
to what the, Tony, excuse me, can someone refresh my memory as to what the homework assignment was? So I know I'm delinquent.
Take 5 pictures of buildings that you will like in Londonderry. That is, commercial and industrial.
The key part of that is that you like.
That you like, not what you don't like.
Right.
Correct.
Where do we send them to you?
To me.
Yeah, send it to
Please.
Kelly.
Just send a bunch of pictures here, Billy.
I did mine back in March.
So 5 that you like and 10 that you don't like?
Nope, I'm not gonna
like.
Just
provide
what
the
you
ones
like.
that you don't like them.
We're keeping the negative out of this.
Buildings, other areas beyond Londonderry that we also like, that we'd like to maybe see architecturally?
No, let's leave it Londonderry.
I wanna see London.
So-
Whatever the
the-
board's preference.
Yeah, whatever your preference is, so this
I
is.
already have all my pictures for my little presentation, so.
So you get the A.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
A
thank you.
lot of brick in those.
Jake will be putting together another presentation.
I'm looking forward to it.
What is the actual date of that meeting? I've heard 3.
27.
27th.
Fourth
27.
Thursday, whatever.
So it's Thursday, the 27th.
Yep,
At what
I
time?
was right the first.
right here, 7,
At 7, thank you.
right here.
Will the Heritage Commission be up on the dais and we'll be in the audience?
No,
No,
It's a Heritage Commission meeting.
no, it's a planning board meeting. That the Heritage Commission was
technically, when you have a
invited to.
joint meeting,
No,
the
it's a
planning board
heritage
has to
meeting.
make the
Yeah,
jurisdiction.
Heritage is in charge.
Okay.
So we sit out there and they sit up here.
Whatever your preference.
So whatever the rules for joint meetings, which I don't think we really have had any with Heritage. I don't think we've had any,
Well,
we've had some with town council way back.
well, when they have a joint meeting with planning board and heritage, the planning board is the primary.
I think that's in our rules anyway,
That's in the
come to
planning
think of it,
board's
so.
rules.
Correct.
Do they have anything else on their agenda for that meeting? Or is it just?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I propose that we have 2 weeks to figure out that, and motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by,
Second.
second by Jake. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That was Jeff that made the motion, so just to